After my nephew's heart transplant surgery, my sister-in-law hid his anti-rejection medication. She thought she was being clever. This heart is too old. If he has a rejection scare, they'll be frightened into giving you a better one. In my past life, I rushed to intervene, and only then did my nephew leave the hospital safely. After being discharged from the hospital, my sister-in-law found absolutely nothing satisfactory about the heart her son had received. She even believed her son's failure in the college entrance exam was due to the donor's poor educational background. Seeing that her son could only attend a diploma mill, my sister-in-law, in a fit of rage, shoved me into the traffic. I've made inquiries. The heart donor didn't even finish junior high school. How dare you give our Xiaoyong such a low-class, worthless organ? Before I could even react, I was hit by a speeding car, left mangled and bloody, and died with bitter regret. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn, back to the moment my sister-in-law hid the anti-rejection medication. 1. What kind of lousy donor heart is this? The donor was already in their 20s. I'm the lead surgeon for my nephew, Li Xiaoyong. I just finished my last overnight surgery and came straight to check on his post-op condition without even taking a break. It's perfectly normal to have some minor rejection reactions right after surgery. However, my sister-in-law, Kai Jianan, believes our city hospital treats patients based on their status. She thinks that because they're an ordinary family, we deliberately chose the worst possible donor heart for Xiaoyong, which caused his rejection reaction. Xiaoyong, you're a good student. Your body is naturally rejecting a heart from those low-class people. No way, we're switching today, and that's final. When I walked into the hospital room, Kai Jianan had just hidden the anti-rejection medication in her bag and was saying to Li Xiaoyong with a smug, knowing look, these hospitals are so crooked these days. They're just rushing you into surgery to scam our family's money, and your aunt is no saint either. She must be getting a kickback. Just hang in there for a bit, Xiaoyong. When you have a rejection episode later, it'll give them a good scare. Then they'll be willing to give you a better one. My surgery schedule has been packed to the brim. I went 3 days and nights without sleep just to squeeze in that operation for Li Xiaoyong, and in the end, Kai Jianan had the nerve to say that about me behind my back. Hearing my footsteps, Kai Jianan jumped with a start and cautiously tried to feel me out. Xiaoying, you're so busy with work. What brings you here? My older brother sat guiltily and pathetically on the nearby hospital bed. Is Xiaoyong going to be all right? Faced with the exact same question as in my past life, I fell silent for a moment. 2. In my previous life, Kai Jianan's actions sent a chill down my spine. From who knows where, she had heard that the heart donor was a young woman in her 20s, an idle worker at an electronics factory. She insisted that a heart from such an inferior person was unworthy of being transplanted into her precious son's body. I hurriedly explained to her that Li Xiaoyong had just undergone a heart transplant, and without taking anti-rejection medication, he could easily be in mortal danger. Furthermore, our hospital would never treat patients differently based on their status. The heart we transplanted for Li Xiaoyong was already the best and most suitable one available at the time. It's true that the donor was working in an electronics factory at a young age, but she was abandoned as a child and never had the chance to go to school. So she had no choice but to work in an electronics factory to make a living. Even after the accident, her first thought was to donate her organs to those in need. Her name is Dai Yinin, and she's a wonderful girl, absolutely not the inferior person that Kai Jianan claims. But no matter how much I explained, Kai Jianan insisted it was because the money wasn't enough. He then pulled out a dozen or so 100 yuan bills from his wallet and threw them onto my white coat. You'd even take a kickback on a life-saving surgery for your own nephew. You're despicable, Li Yingying. What's wrong with wanting a younger, healthier heart for my son? This should be more than enough. Seeing that reasoning with her was pointless, I had no choice but to call a nurse to help me supervise Li Xiaoyong as he took his anti-rejection medication. After a long and difficult ordeal, Li Xiaoyong was finally discharged from the hospital safely. Little did anyone know, the real chaos, courtesy of Kai Jianan, only began after Li Xiaoyong left the hospital. 3. No matter how she looked at it, Kai Jianan couldn't stand the sight of Li Xiaoyong's new heart. She had picked up this idea from somewhere, that after a heart transplant, the recipient could be influenced by the donor's personality. Li Xiaoyong was all too ready to play along. Whenever he got caught stealing, hitting people, or harassing female classmates and his parents were called in, he would clutch his chest and wail, "Mom, it's all this heart's fault. I don't know what comes over me. My heart starts throbbing with pain, and then I just lose control of my actions." It's all because Auntie stopped you from getting me a better heart back then. Even Li Xiaoyong failing the college entrance exam was, in Kai Jianan's mind, the donor's fault. She believed the donor's low education and poor intellect had somehow interfered with Xiaoyong's studies, rendering his 12 years of hard work worthless and ruining his bright future. Seeing that Xiaoyong's scores would only get him into a third-rate diploma mill, Kai Jianan, in a fit of rage, shoved me into the oncoming traffic. I've made inquiries. The person who donated the heart didn't even finish junior high. How dare you give our Xiaoyong such a worthless organ from some low-class nobody? If you hadn't stopped me back then, I would have exposed your hospital's scheme long ago and gotten Xiaoyong a proper, good heart. Before I could even react, I was struck by a speeding car, left mangled and bloodied, dying with bitter resentment. Now that I've been reborn and returned to this day, the score between us is far from settled. I calmly adjusted my glasses. Nothing much, just came by to have a look, with surveillance cameras all over the ward now, to make a clean getaway. I have to feign complete ignorance and simply fulfill my duties as a doctor. As usual, I gave Li Xiaoyong a quick once-over and asked the routine question, Xiaoyong, did you take your anti-rejection medication today? Li Xiaoyong was in the rejection phase, his mind a bit foggy from a low-grade fever. From where I was standing, I could just see Kai Jianan making exaggerated faces, signaling Li Xiaoyong to get their story straight. Yes, I did. Thanks for checking in, Ying. Li Xiaoyong also nodded and said, I took it, Auntie, with the surveillance footage as proof. My duty is done. In this life, I've decided to step back and let their family achieve their heart's desire. I just wonder if they can bear the price of getting what they wished for. That very night, Li Xiaoyong was rushed to the emergency room due to severe rejection. The transplanted heart was clearly no longer viable. Kai Jianan probably never imagined that skipping a single dose of anti-rejection medication could be so dire. Now in a panic, she was pacing frantically in the hallway, her face pale. She grabbed my hand and said, Ying, I told you the heart Xiaoyong received was no good. The rejection is this severe. Look, am I the one causing trouble? No matter what, your hospital has to take full responsibility. Get a better surgeon for our Xiaoyong's operation, and do it now. I couldn't help but laugh. No wonder in my past life, even though I ran myself ragged trying to save Li Xiaoyong, often going days without sleep, my brother and his wife still thought I was just currying favor for kickbacks, that my intentions were never pure. Anyone with half a brain knows how difficult it is to wait for a perfectly matched organ, yet when Kai Jianan said it, it sounded as casual and effortless as picking out cabbages at a market. I said flatly, want a transplant? Sure, get in line for a donor heart first. Let me count. There are only about 20 people ahead of Xiaoyong on the list. I just don't know if Xiaoyong can hold on that long. What a poor kid. The older brother clenched his fist and yelled, Xiaoyong is your nephew. How can you treat him the same as a stranger? What do the lives of other people have to do with you? Stop waiting in line right now and get your nephew a good spot. He was shouting about wanting special treatment right under the surveillance cameras, making everyone roll their eyes in disbelief. I shrugged my shoulders. Brother, it's true Xiaoyong is my nephew, but this hospital isn't our family business. Are you saying other people's lives don't matter? But, big brother, Xiaoyong's rejection is this severe. Are you sure you've been giving him the anti-rejection medication? The older brother's expression froze for a moment, as if he'd just remembered something. His fist, as big as a sandbag, finally connected with Kai Jianan's face. Didn't you say that if we just scared them by withholding the anti-rejection drugs, we could get Xiaoyong a better donor heart? Kai Jianan was knocked to the ground by the punch and stumbled back to his feet. That hospital is heartless. They'd rather let Xiaoyong die than give a good donor heart to anyone but the rich. No, I have to go and demand an explanation from them. Before Kai Jianan could even start making a scene, a nurse delivered the devastating news. If we can't find a suitable donor heart within half an hour, the family should brace themselves for the worst. 05. The bad ones always seem to live forever. At the last possible moment, his elder brother managed to find a suitable heart donor for Li Xiaoyong. Hearing that the eldest brother's family was desperate, the other party made an outrageous demand, asking for a commission of 188,000 yuan right off the bat. At this point, it came down to a choice between the 188,000 yuan and Li Xiaoyong's life. To preserve the family line, the eldest brother steeled himself and agreed to transfer the title of his house to them after being discharged from the hospital. With the contract signed in black and white, there was no going back on it. The atmosphere in the hospital room after the surgery was heavy and oppressive, with a grim expression. The eldest brother ignored the no-smoking rule in the ward, lit a cigarette, and glared at Kai Jianan. "Are you happy now?" "Why wouldn't I be happy? A young person's heart is just better, so full of vitality. Look at our Xiaoyong, recovering so quickly this time, with rosy cheeks and such a healthy glow." Even in his smugness, Kai Jianan didn't forget to shoot a glance my way. "Yingying, I've come to realize something. You can't rely entirely on hospitals for everything. Think about it. Is a heart source the hospital struggles to find for ages really better than one we can locate ourselves in half an hour?" Li Xiaoyong's flushed complexion is because he's still in the rejection phase and running a persistent low-grade fever. As for him recovering better this time than last, that's just a coincidence. I pressed my lips together, offering no rebuttal. "Sis, it's true what they say. A parent's love knows no bounds. I have nothing but respect for you and Big Brother, seeing all you've done for Xiaoyong." Kai Jianan had been showing off for so long just to hear me say that. Now she was practically bursting with excitement. "I've made some inquiries. You know, that little boy is something truly extraordinary. 6. He's been a top student since he was little, really bright, and he's about the same age as our Xiaoyong. Maybe it's fate. I even feel like this little boy was born just to give our Xiaoyong a new heart." Kai Jianan was lost in a beautiful dream. Of course, I wouldn't tell her that with each organ transplant, the body develops more antibodies. The next time a heart is transplanted, the rejection will only be more severe and life-threatening. This time, Li Xiaoyong managed to pull through by sheer luck. But what about the next time? Yet this time, I chose to remain completely silent, just as Li Xiaoyong said to me with a chilling glare. "How could my own mother ever harm me? If you hadn't stopped her from getting me a better heart back then, I'd be living a normal life by now, right? How could his mother ever harm him? So this time, let him fully embrace the life that was truly meant to be his." 7. The day for Li Xiaoyong to be discharged from the hospital arrived quickly. Unlike the healthy Li Xiaoyong who left the hospital in his previous life, this version of him had suddenly become gaunt, with a deathly pale complexion and occasional night sweats, but he bounced back remarkably fast. The man who had been somewhat sullen before being admitted was now full of energy, even doing an imaginary jump shot after taking a few steps. Compared to Li Xiaoyong before his illness and hospitalization, he's just brimming with energy now. He's even developed a completely different personality. Kai Jianan raised his glass high in a toast. "Xiaoyong is so much more cheerful now, and his grades have improved a lot too." I knew sticking it out was the right call. As they say, the bold get to enjoy the world first. I smiled and clinked my glass against hers. "You know, it's actually quite common for people to undergo a complete personality change after a heart transplant, becoming almost unrecognizable from their former selves. Most people attribute this to the influence of the donor's own personality, treating it as a deeply unsettling kind of paranormal event. In reality, this was a manifestation of severe stress brought on by the agony of intense physical rejection. But if I didn't bring it up, no one else in the family would bother to look that deeply into it. On the contrary, the whole family saw Kai Jianan as a great hero who, undaunted by powerful opposition, had secured a good heart for Li Xiaoyong. But the higher they're placed on a pedestal, the more they stand to lose. The higher the fall, the greater the pain. 8. Late one night, 2 months later, I trudged back to my apartment complex through the pouring rain, only to find a pale-faced youth crouching by the entrance. The boy looked up at me, his face alight with desperation. "Auntie, you have to help me. If my mom keeps this up, she's going to be the death of me." Before I could even respond, Li Xiaoyong sprang to his feet and launched into a tirade. "My mom found out somehow that the donor for my heart was a top student and a star athlete. Since my own grades are poor, she's gone completely crazy. She forces me into intense daily training, trying to turn me into an athlete as a shortcut. My body just can't take it." She said she was going to ask you to forge a medical certificate to prove I'm fit to take the physical exam. In fact, Kai Jianan from her past life had thought the same way. Li Xiaoyong's grades had always been poor. Kai Jianan believed that becoming a student athlete was a shortcut, so she wanted to force Li Xiaoyong into sports. But I knew perfectly well that for someone with Li Xiaoyong's physical condition, this wasn't a shortcut at all. It was a death sentence, so I invested both money and effort to help Li Xiaoyong cram for his academic subjects. I even paid a premium to hire my high school classmate, an outstanding teacher from a top-tier city high school, to tutor him. Later, Li Xiaoyong successfully gained admission to a key high school. to get back at me for making him attend class. He actually took a recording from the session and went to report my classmate for running a private tutoring business. Li Xiaoyong even spent his New Year's money to hire someone to maliciously edit the audio, claiming my classmate threatened to demand expensive gifts or else he would use his connections to make him fail the high school entrance exam. No matter how much I try to compensate, it can never make up for the pain my classmate feels from losing his job and his future prospects. I was consumed with guilt, drifting through my days in a daze, unable to even manage my own work. When I went to confront Li Xiaoyong, he just scoffed, a cigarette dangling from his lips. What are you babbling about? You owed me this all along, don't you know? The classmates who went into sports are the ones I envy most. I could have gotten into my dream school without even trying. If you hadn't given me this lousy heart that can't run or jump, I would have breezed into a top school on a sports scholarship ages ago, and I haven't even blamed you for forcing me to study until I'm half dead. So now, all of a sudden, sports aren't good enough. I silently folded the umbrella, paying no mind to his pleading. Li Xiaoyong, are you suffering from a persecution complex? She's your mother. She would never do you harm. The path she's chosen for you, just like this heart she selected, is undoubtedly the one that suits you best. Some people are just born with a serval streak. The more you neglect his well-being, the more he mistakes it for a rare and precious freedom, convinced you're treating him with genuine kindness, and he clings on, refusing to let go. Well, if that's the case, then you'll just have to grin and bear it. 9. Li Xiaoyong trembled uncontrollably, growing more agitated by the second. But I cut Li Xiaoyong off directly. Xiaoyong, it's not that your aunt is unwilling to help you. It's just that I'm not the only one who can issue that certificate. Even if I refuse, there are others, not to mention, your mother never even came to me in the first place. Li Xiaoyong stubbornly bit his lower lip, his fist clenching in silent resolve. The heart transplant had left Li Xiaoyong terribly gaunt. He was as thin as a whittled-down bamboo pole, his skeletal frame protruding visibly. I could knock him over with one hand. He posed no threat to me whatsoever, though in this matter I was powerless to help him. But other things, that's a different story. My Bluetooth headphones suddenly disconnected. My phone started playing some perfectly timed rumors out loud. For example, after a heart transplant, someone suddenly started becoming as irritable and short-tempered as the organ donor. For instance, some people inherit the violent tendencies of their donor. Since Kai Jianan believes Li Xiaoyong could inherit that boy's athletic talent, then of course he could also inherit that boy's propensity for violence. As he listened, a meaningful smile suddenly played at the corner of Li Xiaoyong's lips. You should get some rest, Auntie. I won't disturb you any further. Actually, I've studied some adolescent psychology. Proper guidance from elders is crucial during a teenager's development. If someone were to lead them astray, it would spell disaster for the entire family, sooner or later. Kai Jianan and his wife will have to taste the bitter fruit of their actions. That very night, Li Xiaoyong smashed and destroyed most of the newly rented house belonging to his brother and sister-in-law. 10. Some people's wickedness is etched deep in their very bones and blood. Early the next morning, as if by instinct, Li Xiaoyong once again clutched his chest in a display of pained and aggrieved suffering. It's all because of this heart. I don't know what happened. My heart started throbbing with pain, and then I just lost control of my actions. But this time, the organ donor for Li Xiaoyong was chosen by Kai Jianan. The family's conflict was suddenly directed at Kai Jianan. How can we let someone of such dubious background donate a heart to Li Xiaoyong? That once so obedient child has turned into this deranged state. His whole life is ruined. She is just like my past self. I hope Li Xiaoyong, being educated and reasonable, can help explain things to her. In the end, Li Xiaoyong was utterly aggrieved, feeling as trapped and tormented as if Kai Jianan had put him over a fire. Mom, say whatever you want, it doesn't matter anymore. You've already ruined my life. I should have listened to Auntie back then. She went from being the Li family's great benefactor. I became the villain who ruined the life of the Li family's precious darling. My family, after so long, finally remembered my worth again. They sent message after message begging me to come back, dragging Kai Jianan's name through the mud. This time, it was Kai Jianan's turn to taste the bitterness of being unable to defend herself. With both his special talents and academic studies leading nowhere, Li Xiaoyong had no choice but to give up on the high school entrance exam and enroll in the city's only private vocational school that didn't require any test scores. At life's crossroads, he chose the worst possible path and stubbornly followed it into the darkness. 11. For Li Xiaoyong, a born troublemaker, It was a real boon to be able to throw tantrums at will and still find a plausible excuse that forced others to forgive him, but for someone with a heart condition like his, emotional instability is a ticking time bomb, ready to go off at any moment, so it wasn't long before I saw Li Xiaoyong in the hospital. The whole family was laying into Kai Jianan. How could they have given Li Xiaoyong a heart with a congenital defect? How could a mother do something so harmful to her own child? Kai Jianan sat in the corner, utterly broken and sobbing. In this lifetime, we did not part ways. She had no idea what I had done, so when she saw me, the only one who hadn't blamed her, it was like she'd found her anchor. It turned out that after tasting success, Li Xiaoyong once again directed his malice toward his own classmates. But in this life, he was small and frail, no match for those street toughs, and quickly became the target of everyone's scorn. He got into a heated argument with the local troublemaker, his face flushed red with anger. The other guy hadn't even laid a finger on him. He himself slammed his head against the ground and started convulsing. The doctor's response was that the next transplant surgery had to be arranged as soon as possible, otherwise, Li Xiaoyong's fate would be left to chance. As expected, the whole family has set their sights on me again. 12. My eldest brother's voice was thick with reproach. Ying, saving your nephew just this once would be a way to make up for your mistakes. I let out a bitter laugh. Make up for my mistakes? What exactly have I done wrong? Bro, you can't just lose your mind in front of me because you're upset, my older brother said with righteous indignation. How can you even say that? You're a doctor. Don't you know what kind of trouble your sister-in-law's recklessness could lead to? You didn't stop her, so of course all this is your fault. You work at a hospital. Pulling strings to get a heart for your nephew is the least you should do. I gave a dismissive, oh, and said, so just because I work somewhere, I'm supposed to abuse the privileges that come with it. Fine. If your whole family is so keen on getting something for nothing from me, maybe I should go sign up at the crematorium today. Should I put in a rush order to have him cremated tomorrow? My eldest brother was left speechless, his face turning purple with rage. Li Ying, don't push your luck, know your place. Xiaoyong is your own nephew, I snorted coldly, and he's your own son. You're all adults. You didn't use your heads when you made your choices, and now you're blaming others. You let others play the villain while you pay no price. Do you really think the world works that way? I think it's you who should know your place. My brother and Kai Jianan tried to rush at me and keep the argument going. The hospital security guards were quick on the draw and promptly escorted the couple out. A life free from moral blackmail is truly liberating. 13. As luck would have it, the hospital arranged for me to attend a training program in the provincial capital. Given my track record at the hospital, a promotion would be on the table once I got back. I agreed without a second thought. After all, if I stayed, I'd have to brace myself for my brother and his wife's family becoming a permanent burden. I have no intention of sacrificing my own life just to be their family's personal, walking blood bank. To my surprise, it hadn't even been a week since I left L City. My brother and his wife's family became infamous throughout the entire hospital. There's a little girl in our hospital with leukemia, also waiting for a bone marrow match. As luck would have it, my eldest brother was a match for her. My brother and Kai Jianan took the initiative to approach the little girl's mother, who also had cancer. They brought up their willingness to donate bone marrow. The condition was that it couldn't be for free. Something has to be given in return. The little girl's mother felt her own time was running out, and the family's money wasn't enough to support 2 patients. As long as it meant her daughter could live, she was willing to do anything. So she signed the consent form, agreeing to forego treatment and donate her heart to Li Xiaoyong after her natural death. The hospital immediately scheduled the earliest possible surgery for the little girl. They waited for the doctor to complete the marrow ablation for the little girl, but then, the older brother suddenly backed out. On second thought, forget it, he said, I've got to work and support my family. I hear you're completely wiped out after a bone marrow transplant. It would keep me from my job. The little girl's mother knelt before her brother-in-law and his wife, pleading desperately. She begged him to have a heart. Don't gamble with a child's life. If he had backed out earlier, no one could have blamed him, but he chose to back out right after the little girl had undergone the bone marrow clearing procedure. For that little girl, it was a death sentence. Faced with the little girl's mother's desperate plea, the man declared with righteous indignation, if I donate my marrow and it makes me miss work, who's going to support my own wife and kids? It's unthinkable that such pure malice could exist in this world. Thankfully, I had already been searching for a suitable bone marrow donor for the little girl, made it just in the nick of time. The surgery went smoothly, and all is well. As for my brother and his wife's whole household of overgrown babies, no one's going to indulge them anymore. 14. The hospital leadership stated bluntly that their institution was too small and lacked the capability to handle a case as complex as Li Xiaoyong's. From now on, they would not assist in finding a suitable heart donor for Li Xiaoyong and suggested he try his luck at another hospital. However, the notoriety of their egregious case had already spread throughout the hospital network. If you keep doing bad things, karma will always catch up with you. As a result, my eldest brother lost his job as a hospital security guard, cutting off the family's entire source of income. For Li Xiaoyong, who desperately needed a heart transplant to survive, this was essentially a death sentence for his whole family. 15. When I landed back in El City, my phone was blowing up with notifications. My best friend transferred 20,000 yuan to me. Ying, what's wrong? Are you in some kind of trouble? Why on earth are you suddenly selling your apartment? I was stunned. Why would I sell my newly renovated apartment? It's perfectly fine. The property listing my best friend sent me was, without a doubt, my own home. Even the photo used in the listing was unmistakably a picture of my bedroom, except all the electronics and jewelry that were out in the open were gone. But my boss's message was the real shocker. Your older brother just came by the hospital. He said he's going to resign on your behalf so you can go back to your hometown and get married. But don't worry, I didn't approve it. I can't bear to let go of a student as driven as you, but they're making quite a scene, so you'd better come over and see for yourself. I didn't put up with their nonsense either. I called the police right away and had the whole evidence collection process handled in one go. I thought I was prepared, but I was still stunned when I arrived at the hospital. Outside my office, there was an inner ring of funeral wreaths and an outer ring of onlookers. Kai Jianan had already dressed Li Xiaoyong, who was in a wheelchair, in burial clothes, and then brazenly began scattering spirit money right there in the hospital. Xiaoyong, you've had such a hard life, saddled with an aunt who has no medical ethics. Your aunt not only refused to help you, but to leave our family with nowhere to turn. She even blocked the hospital from treating you. She clearly wanted you dead. And to think we ever considered her family. Kai Jianan's dramatic outburst drew a crowd of passing patients and their families. They all pointed and stared at me, the center of the scandal, as if their glares alone could drown me. Seeing me remain silent, Kai Jianan closed in, her voice dropping to a menacing whisper. Li Ying, you're the one who abandoned our family first and left us with no way out. The media I invited will be here any minute. You've never married all these years, so you must have saved up a fair bit, right? The house is nicely renovated too. If you just compensate us for all of that and find a suitable heart donor for Xiaoyong, I'll step forward and clear your name. Otherwise, you know how powerful the internet can be, don't you? 16. Even if you refuse, all these things will be ours eventually anyway. Leave some room for reconciliation. It's better for us to keep the possibility of being family in the future than to end up destroying each other, don't you think? Kai Jianan spoke with absolute confidence, as if he had found my Achilles heel and was just waiting for the right moment to finish me off, but I was sick of hearing it. In life, there's nothing more dangerous than being full of yourself. Every single step she took was, in fact, perfectly within my plan. Kai Jianan failed to notice that I had recently moved my office from a secluded corner to a spot right across from the bustling promotional screen. The moment the influencer Kai Jianan hired arrived outside my office, I plugged the USB drive into my computer. The promotional screen lit up, starkly displaying the litany of misdeeds committed by their entire family. The playback starts with Kai Jianan's suspicion that the hospital was playing favorites, leading to the unauthorized discontinuation of Li Xiaoyong's anti-rejection medication, interspersed with surveillance footage from my home. My eldest brother brought the husband he had picked out for me right into my house and said with an ingratiating smile, "My sister here is just putting on airs, you just stay at her place. Once it's a done deal, even if she doesn't know you, she'll have to beg you to marry her and take responsibility." But the real bombshell was yet another piece of surveillance footage, this time from Li Xiaoyong's former hospital room. On the surveillance footage, Kai Jianan was seen with a shrewd expression, calculating her own selfish gains. How long are we supposed to wait for her to die? She's not going to drop dead right away. Can our Xiaoyong afford to wait that long? Besides, how old is her mother? Even if she died right now, we wouldn't want her organs. They're not as good as the transplant the hospital originally had for Xiaoyong. Luckily, her daughter is a match for Xiaoyong too. I read online that after the bone marrow is cleared, if she doesn't get a transplant, it's a death sentence. When the time comes, we'll just trick her, tell her that her daughter's life will live on through our Xiaoyong. The onlookers' sympathy for the mother and son instantly turned into a torrent of curses and condemnation. Kai Jianan's face instantly drained of color. He lunged forward, trying to physically block the content on the screen. Stop filming. Stop it. Don't forget who hired you all in the first place. But the self-media influencers were like sharks that had caught the scent of blood. How could they possibly pass up on such explosive material? The paltry sum Kai Jianan had paid them was nothing compared to the massive traffic this scandal would generate. Just as Kai Jianan was on the verge of a complete meltdown, the police arrived at the scene, escorting the brother who had broken in illegally, his hands in cuffs. My eldest brother broke free from the restraint like a rabid dog, wrapping the handcuff chain around Kai Jianan's neck. Damn it, you've ruined this family, you bitch. Watching them tear into each other is quite the spectacle. 17. My eldest brother's got the brains of a brick. All he's good for is throwing his weight around. When it came time to give his official statement, Kai Jianan completely distanced himself, pinning all the blame squarely on him. The hefty compensation is one thing. The big brother won't be getting out for at least 8 to 10 years. Even if he does get out, his life will be just as miserable as Kai Jianan's is now. Kai Jianan tried several jobs in a row, but due to the online backlash, he couldn't last 3 days before getting fired. Her credit was completely ruined, and she had lost all contact with her family. Even a simple trip to buy groceries meant being recognized and publicly shamed by netizens. Life under these circumstances was naturally unbearable, but she should have known. If you try to use online to destroy someone, you must be prepared for it to backfire. 18. To support herself and her son, and to expedite the transplant surgery for her son who had been blacklisted by the medical system, Kai Jianan humbly begged Li Xiaoyong's school to take her in, offering to work as a janitor. Although the school bore no direct responsibility for Li Xiaoyong's accident, it had, after all, happened on school grounds, out of a sense of obligation due to this connection. The school administrators had no choice but to accept Kai Jianan, allowing her to earn a living through manual labor to support herself and her son. 19. I was startled by the sight that greeted me at my doorstep when I got home from work. Li Xiaoyong's face was ashen and gaunt, like a living corpse drained of all vitality. He called out to me in a hollow, wooden voice, "Auntie, you've been reborn too, haven't you?" I didn't answer. Li Xiaoyong gave a bitter, self-mocking laugh. "Auntie, don't try to hide it from me. I know you must have been reborn, otherwise, you'd never just stand by and do nothing while my mother ruined me like this." I sighed. "Yes, I was reborn. So what?" Li Xiaoyong staggered a couple of steps before dropping to his knees in front of me, his face etched with remorse. "Auntie, in my past life, I was foolish. I didn't stop that wretched woman. My mother, she's already ruined my life. Could you adopt me? I can still be saved. If I can just get a heart transplant and get into a good university, I'll make it big. I swear I'll repay you when I do." I let out a scornful laugh. "Li Xiaoyong, your parents are still alive, and even if they were dead, what makes you think anyone owes you a new life? You've been a man-child for so long, you think the whole world is your mommy." Li Xiaoyong's face suddenly went ashen. He slumped to the ground in despair, clutching his own straw-like hair in a near frenzy. "Why didn't I get reborn sooner, Auntie? I know I was wrong. If I had come back earlier, maybe everything would be different. Thank God, thank God. My mom said she'll get me a heart with a matching donor." Li Xiaoyong slowly raised his head, fixing me with a dark, piercing stare. "Auntie, you talk about letting a desperate stray dog like me loose. What if I get cured one day? Will there be peace?" I sneered. "You really never learn, do you?" Just as I was about to dismiss Li Xiaoyong, it suddenly hit me. His school had just conducted a comprehensive end-of-term physical for all students a couple of days ago. Kai Jianan humbling herself to work as a cleaner, she was probably scouting for suitable targets for Li Xiaoyong. 20. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but smile. Li Xiaoyong never got the suitable match he was waiting for. Instead, he received news that Kai Jianan had been caught red-handed by school security trying to push a student down the stairs and was now facing a prison sentence. That family of his had already learned their lesson the hard way with me once before. Did it never occur to you that I never intended to let them off the hook so easily? 21. Not long ago, I realized that if the same crime was split between two people, then both Big Brother and Kai Jianan could walk free without facing the full punishment they deserved. That's why I chose to cooperate with Kai Jianan, to send Big Brother to prison first, so he could spend the next decade or more atoning for his sins behind bars. When you speak with the school principal again, don't focus on Kai Jianan, focus on the students who are physically healthy and academically strong. These are the people who will become Kai Jianan's targets. I wonder if my dear sister-in-law will appreciate the charge of attempted murder. A grown child who has left their parents can only endure one wave of rejection after another. He died suddenly, consumed by the terror of not knowing which rejection would be his last, and the profound unease of death's approach. From the very beginning, I never needed their apologies. I only needed them to truly atone for their sins. 22. Divine justice is clear and true, retribution never fails to arrive. The eldest brother was diagnosed with leukemia while in prison. Out of humanitarian considerations, the prison authorities still arranged for his surgery. However, the college student volunteer who had originally agreed to donate bone marrow to him suddenly backed out after he had undergone the myeloablative procedure. I can't do it. I'm the only college student in my family. I need to stay healthy and focus on my studies. The older brother was so frantic he started cursing. The college student just shrugged helplessly. I'm doing the exact same thing he is. Why is he so triggered? If he's gonna curse, well, curses bounce right back. This time, there was no miraculous, last-minute match. 23. The news that my sister-in-law had sunk into a depression in prison, gone mad, and been transferred to a psychiatric hospital arrived just as someone was presenting me with a bouquet of Hassan tulips. The girl smiled serenely, a little shyly, as she handed me her university acceptance letter to see, Doctor, thank you for making my dream of finishing school come true. Of course, she deserves credit too. She is Dai Inin, who also donated her corneas. Dai Inin, who, right up until she lost consciousness, was still wistfully saying, if only I could have gone to school. Her life continues on in this way. I gave the girl a fountain pen in return, saying, may your future be bright and every path you take be strewn with flowers. And as for me, I must now set out towards my own, better life. Story 2. On day 137 of the zombie outbreak, I was cooking hot pot at home while singing, seeing my ex-husband next door with pitiful eyes. I scraped the pot, no lie, only hot pot scraps left. The scumbag ex-husband smiled ingratiatingly, not picky, watching him devour the pot like crazy. Generous me even rewarded him with 10 servings of hot pot scraps. I was reborn, returning to the day the zombie outbreak began. Looking at the man wearing black silk pajamas, my breathing became rapid. The man before me, Finian, had divorced me 3 days ago. He was also the man who pushed me into the zombies and killed me in my previous life. Finian said impatiently, Vivian, what are you still standing there for? Quickly call the moving company's truck and have all those vegetable-growing cabinets of yours taken away. 1. Finian is a rich second-generation heir. This townhouse was bought by his parents as his premarital home. My relationship with Finian went from school uniforms to wedding dresses, from my college graduation to me becoming a home gardening streamer. Our 10-year relationship ended because Finian betrayed our marriage. I looked at the man full of disgust before me, no longer feeling the regret from our divorce in my previous life. I quickly picked up my phone and glanced at the time displayed on it, July 30th, 2022, 09:46. I remember that at 09:51, just 5 minutes later, my phone would sound an alarm and push various news about the appearance of zombies. At that moment, Finian's mistress rushed down from the second floor wrapped in a towel, holding her phone. Zombies. There are zombies. Look, on the phone was a video from a social media app, a pale-faced man with bulging veins and a mouth stretched to an impossible angle charging into a crowd, biting wildly. I pushed Finian aside and went into the kitchen to pour a glass of ice water. As the ice water went down my throat, my brain started racing. In the 400 square meter garden of this villa, there's a pond with the koi fish I raise, along with 3 eels usually used for making unagi don. The chicken coop houses 7 chickens, and besides these, I also grow various vegetables and fruits in the garden. Starting today, zombies will frequently roam around this villa, attracted to the source of any sounds they hear. This means that after today, aside from staying inside the villa, lingering in the outdoor garden is simply not an option. Fortunately, as a homesteading blogger, besides growing vegetables in the open garden, I've also researched how to cultivate plants indoors using grow cabinets. 09:51. The phones of everyone present emitted a piercing alarm sound simultaneously. Just as expected, everything was identical to the timeline of the previous life. A message was forcibly broadcast on the phone screens. First level alert. Citizens, the city is now facing highly lethal zombies that are absolutely infectious when they bite. Please seek shelter at the nearest safe location immediately. Finian was so frightened that he began to stutter. You're joking, right? Are there really zombies? Finian's reaction was the same as in the previous life, instantly terrified. Standing frozen in place, everything happening now remains unchanged. Except for the shift in my state of mind. In the previous life, after the divorce, I no longer had the right to continue living here. Finian and Octavia used this as leverage, forcing me to stay here while being responsible for their daily needs, cultivating indoor vegetables, tending to the live chickens kept in the basement theater, and handling all miscellaneous chores. The irony is, I ultimately died at their hands and indirectly caused another person's death. I ran into the garden at full speed. If nothing went wrong, would meet him. This was my only chance to survive. I climbed over the wooden fence of the townhouse and stood firmly in front of Quentin. At this moment, Quentin was basking in the sun, too. He wore headphones, leaned back in the wicker chair, with his eyes closed. His cold and clean face looked like a statue in the sunlight. Chapter 2, Living Next to My Ex-Husband. I directly possessed and removed the headphones Quentin was using to listen to music on an old-school MP3 player. His deep, ink-black eyes instantly flew open. I'd been Quentin's neighbor for nearly 4 years, yet apart from knowing he sunbathed every morning and didn't work outside, I knew nothing about him. But none of that matters now. I shoved the zombie news alert from my phone in front of Quentin. Quentin, zombies have appeared in our city now. Quentin's eyes showed a momentary daze. Then his expression returned to its usual calm as he looked at me. Could you let me stay at your place temporarily? If you don't take me in now, we'll both die. But if you dare to shelter me, we might have a chance to survive together. Quentin's gaze at me grew complicated. Are you doing this to spite your ex-husband? News about zombies. Do you really think I'd believe that? Before this, zombies only existed in horror movies. Zombies had never appeared in reality before. If I hadn't seen the news and been reborn, I wouldn't believe it either. Time was tight. I quickly scanned around and realized Quentin didn't have a phone at all. To make Quentin believe my words were true, I opened the local live streams and scrolled until I found a Daredevil broadcaster showing zombie footage. Quentin, this is live. I heard from the property manager that you were once the best lawyer in City A. You should have the ability to discern truth from lies. Quentin took my phone. His gaze locked on the live stream. I caught a fleeting glimpse of shock in his calm eyes. I methodically listed the reasons why Quentin should take me in. I know your meat reserves are quite substantial, but previously, your housekeeper used to deliver vegetables and fruits to you on a monthly schedule. Now she can't come anymore. I have a vegetable cultivation cabinet that can ensure nutritional intake from produce. And I also have live chickens to guarantee daily egg supply. Plus, my words were interrupted by Quentin. He asked me a heart-piercing question. Can you still bring out the things you mentioned from your ex-husband's house now? To survive, you must bring it out. I said, Quentin, if I can bring back what I mentioned, you have to promise to take me in. The zombie outbreak has happened, and no one would be foolish enough to turn down a home gardening streamer who can grow vegetables and fruits indoors. My palms kept sweating. Afraid that Quentin wouldn't agree with me, fortunately, in the end, Quentin's cat suddenly rubbed against my feet. I had often fed this elderly tabby salmon through the fence in the past. Quentin stared silently at the cat rubbing against my pant leg for a long moment. Finally, he responded calmly, all right, I agree. I suppose I must have benefited from the old cat's favor. I rushed back to my ex-husband's house at top speed, intending to take the vegetable cultivation cabinet. Finian had recovered from his shock and stood blocking my way. Finian, you can't take the vegetable cultivation cabinet now. I laughed angrily at Finian. This vegetable cultivation cabinet is crucial for me now. The news says zombies are attracted by sound, so growing vegetables in open gardens won't be feasible later. We'll need this cabinet. When divorcing my toxic ex-husband, I remained completely calm. Given a second chance at life, I must protect both Quentin and myself. I summoned unprecedented fierceness to intimidate Finian. I grabbed a cleaver from the kitchen. Finian, you were the one who made me move the cultivation cabinet. Now that zombies are here, you won't lay a finger on it. Either let me take the vegetable cultivation cabinet today, or one of us dies. Chapter 3, Dividing the Supplies. Finian saw a fierceness in my eyes he'd never witnessed before. When he saw me raising the cleaver toward him, he instantly backed down and chose to compromise. Vivian, you can take the vegetable cultivation cabinet, but this counts as our marital property. You can only take half. For vegetable cultivation cabinets, taking half would still be sufficient. I followed his words. Since you said it's marital property, the vegetables I grew outdoors and various daily necessities, I should also take half. I don't want the koi in the pond. But out of the 3 eels kept for cooking, I'll take 1. Of the 7 live chickens, I want 1 rooster and 2 hens. That's not excessive, is it? When I was packing my luggage earlier, besides clothes and toiletries, I even packed the tea I bought and sanitary pads. The sanitary pads I've stockpiled are enough to last a year. I moved everything to the garage using the flat cart I normally use for transporting fertilizer. Finian sneered from the side. Vivian, even if I give you half of these things, could you take them away now? I advise you not to stubbornly insist out of spite. I can take you in. But only if you listen to me. Still thinking of keeping me as a free nanny, a human shield. Not a chance in this lifetime. The underground garage of the townhouse is interconnected. When I pushed everything from Finian's garage to the neighboring Quentin's garage, Quentin pressed the switch, and the metal roll-up door of the adjacent garage opened. Finian's face turned completely green when he saw me pushing everything to the neighboring garage. Finian rushed forward excitedly and grabbed my hand. Vivian, when did you secretly get together with the guy next door behind my back? Seeing the anger in Finian's eyes at mistakenly thinking he'd been cheated on, I deliberately said, Finian, when we got together is none of your business. In the past, we both cheated. So we're even. From now on, you go your way, and I'll go mine. I purely wanted to make Finian furious enough to spit blood. 3. After saying that, I didn't even dare to look at Quentin's expression at that moment, yet at that very moment, Quentin stepped forward and pried Finian's hand off mine. Quentin, don't pester Vivian anymore from now on. Finian raised his fist and swung at Quentin's face. Everything happened too fast. With a startled cry, I tried to step in to block. But Quentin had already knocked Finian to the ground. Quentin looked down with disdain and spat out, "Trash." Seeing Finian lying on the ground questioning his life choices, I silently gave Quentin a thumbs up in my heart. This instant takedown made Finian think twice about messing with Quentin again. Quentin quickly pushed all my belongings into the garage, then shut the metal roll-up door. His profound gaze fell upon my face. Vivian, I hope you won't regret your decision. I looked at him and nodded firmly. Even if I die, I won't regret it. Quentin's gaze at me deepened. Quentin, I'll make some food. Feel free to go anywhere except my room. This is my first time entering Quentin's villa. It's pretty much what I imagined. Compared to the nouveau riche European-style decor of my ex-husband's home, Quentin's interior design leans more towards wabi-sabi aesthetics, just like Quentin himself. It gives off a zen-like, desireless vibe. Although the decoration styles differ, all townhouses were equipped with solar power devices for each household before delivery. Even if there's a power outage later, electricity for some basic household equipment can still be guaranteed. Moreover, Quentin also had a water well dug in the garden. Typically for villas with water wells, the construction team will implement projects to channel the well water indoors. In his previous life, Quentin survived for 183 days in the villa, indicating that his well also had a drainage system installed. Additionally, a slag removal system is essential for every household. I chose an empty room in the basement to store some non-degradable household waste. #chapter for the food he cooks is delicious. Other waste, I can turn it into organic fertilizer. I placed 3 live chickens in Quentin's basement home theater. The soundproofing in the villa's basement home theater is excellent, even if you raise chickens inside. No sound can be heard outside. I also placed 2 vegetable cultivation cabinets in the basement home theater. Originally, the 4 vegetable cultivation cabinets each grew different types of vegetables. The 2 vegetable cultivation cabinets left at my ex-husband's house contained lettuce, chives, cabbage, and kale. In the 2 cultivation cabinets I took with me, apart from mature lettuce and garlic sprouts, the other plants were still seedlings and unrecognizable. Actually, there are cherry carrots, baby potatoes, taro, eggplant, and green beans inside. There are also equally divided seeds, and even the ex-husband doesn't know what they are, but I can guarantee that without me and no Wi-Fi to go online, the ex-husband could never grow vegetables in the cultivation cabinet. I found a bucket at Quentin's place and kept the eel in it. With this method of keeping, it can survive for at most a week, so it's best to make unagi don and eat it within a week. There are 2 large refrigerators placed in Quentin's basement, just as I thought. The two large refrigerators are packed with all kinds of meat, pork, lamb, beef, fish, you name it. He doesn't consume much by himself, no wonder he could last so long in the previous life. Another storage room also contains various cat foods and canned cat food, occupying nearly half of the space. These cat food supplies could easily last a full year. Apart from sealing the windows, the preliminary food preparations and various daily necessities are almost entirely sufficient. I glanced at the time. It was already almost 1 p.m. For, around 5:30 this evening, the first zombie will appear in this neighborhood. Fortunately, the zombie isn't heading towards our row of townhouses. I went to the first floor living room and saw Quentin wearing an apron, ladling soup in the kitchen. Lotus root and pork rib soup, shredded pork with garlic sauce, stir-fried spinach. During the zombie apocalypse, this is way too luxurious. I stared blankly at his retreating figure. Quentin seemed to sense my gaze. With his back still turned, he said, "After we regain our strength, we'll find a way to board up all the windows." When Quentin set the dishes on the table, I noticed he'd even placed 2 glasses of red wine on the table. I've checked everywhere except Quentin's bedroom, but I didn't find any red wine in his house. Quentin guessed what I was thinking, he explained. "I dug a wine cellar beneath the basement. The wall at the end of the basement entrance is the access point." I couldn't contain my excitement. "You actually have a wine cellar at home. This means we can share a drink occasionally and elevate our friendship." Quentin's eyes grew profound again. "Your idea is good." After finishing the meal, I didn't have time to appreciate Quentin's wine cellar for the moment. There are still 3 hours left until 5:30 now, just like in the previous life. The residents remaining in the villa would seal their doors and windows to protect themselves from zombie invasions and prevent others from looting their supplies. The doors and windows of this villa are all made of bulletproof grade materials by the developer, but just in case, I told my ex-husband that the front unit of our townhouse is still under renovation. With the garage roll-up door open and filled with various building materials, I had accidentally seen it before, in the previous life. My ex-husband immediately took the materials with me to seal all the windows after hearing what I said. Of course I wouldn't casually share such important information with my ex-husband now. I originally intended to tell Quentin about retrieving the panel materials, but seeing Quentin eating with such calm elegance, I couldn't help asking, "Quentin, aren't you afraid?" In the quiet living room, sunlight streamed through the sheer curtains, illuminating Quentin's handsome face. He carried an ethereal chill, as if untouched by worldly affairs. His voice was indifferent. "All men must die." My hand holding the fork paused. I couldn't help but recall my past life. If not for saving that scumbag and his mistress, Quentin wouldn't have died. I gazed resolutely at Quentin. Even if death comes for all, one should die without regrets after witnessing all the wonders this world has to offer. His icy voice uttered words of utter world weariness. "Vivian, some people are already dead while still alive." I wasn't the least bit surprised to hear Quentin say such things. "Me, your perspective might change because of your new roommate here." A faint smile flickered in Quentin's eyes. "I hope so." Chapter 5, Competing for Lumber. 9. I immediately informed Quentin about the renovation materials for the first household. "Get a good night's rest today. We'll board up the windows first thing tomorrow morning. There won't be any zombies appearing around here tomorrow morning." The next day, to avoid drawing attention, Quentin and I started moving lumber at 5 in the morning. Since it's the same row of townhouses, moving lumber through the connected underground garage is particularly convenient. 5. Unlike my previous life, when my ex-husband would just stand by giving orders while I did most of the lumber carrying. Now, though Quentin and I don't speak, we work in perfect sync moving the lumber together. Just to be safe, I also used Quentin's drone to survey the surrounding area. There are indeed no zombies lingering in this vicinity. While boarding up the windows, Quentin suddenly asked, "Should we start with the windows facing the garden on the first floor, or leave them for last?" Actually, I had already thought about this issue yesterday. This row of townhouses has a total of 5 households. The first unit at the front end is still under renovation and not yet occupied. The second unit is home to 2 elderly people who recently went abroad to visit their children for vacation. The third unit is occupied by a 996 corporate executive who was at work when the zombies appeared, leaving only the nanny at home who has been hiding in the room ever since. The fourth unit is Quentin's house, and the fifth belongs to the ex-husband who's a scumbag. Sealing other windows wouldn't easily alert the neighboring residents, but sealing the garden window would undoubtedly disturb Finian. I replied, seal the garden window first. A flicker of surprise crossed Quentin's eyes, yet he didn't object. Quentin, as you request. Quentin didn't ask me for the reason. During this special period, this inexplicable trust moved me somewhat. 6. The dramatic scene I imagined then unfolded. My ex-husband, with dark circles from lack of sleep, climbed over the wooden fence trying to snatch the window boarding lumber from Quentin and me. Finian pushed me down abruptly. Vivian, you wretched woman, thinking you can hide safely here with this loser. Not a chance. Behind me was the small square table Quentin had placed in the garden. My heart sank. Just as I thought the back of my head would hit the small table, I fell into a warm and firm embrace. A faint fragrance wafts around my nose, like the scent of mint in sunlight. Finian's face turned dark and green seeing me tightly held in Quentin's arms. You shameless couple, I sneered from within Quentin's embrace. Who are you to judge me? Finian was the one who cheated, yet he showed no remorse. He cursed under his breath. Bitch. Before Finian snatched the lumber, I awkwardly stood up from Quentin's embrace. Finian, there's plenty of this lumber. No need to fight over it. I can tell you where to get more. Finian glared at me angrily. You think I'd still believe you now? This was supposed to be my line right now. But I don't want to waste time on my ex-husband. The sooner we board up the windows, the safer we'll be. Finian, zombies locate their prey by sound. If you keep fighting for the lumber, I'll scream. Then we'll both die together. Finian's eyes were full of mockery. Now that you've finally gotten back together with him, would you really be willing to die? I never thought about dying. But I bet Finian is afraid of death, confirming there are no zombies nearby for now. I laugh like a madman, raising my voice louder and louder. Finian panics instantly. Vivian, I wasn't trying to steal this lumber. Just tell me where I can get some. My gaze shifts to Octavia. Octavia stood by the back door of the neighboring villa, separated by a wooden fence. Clearly, Octavia would retreat into the room if she sensed trouble. I told Finian, make Octavia come over. Octavia is a complete green tea bitch. She's still wary of my ferocity from yesterday. Octavia, Finian, I'm not feeling well right now and can't move the lumber. In my past life, to stay in my ex-husband's household, I endured many slaps from Octavia. I looked at Octavia. I won't hit you. I just want you to slap Finian 10 times. Then I'll tell you where the lumber you want is located. Chapter 6. Tea Talk. Octavia reacted quickly. She looked at Finian with deep affection. Finian, how could I bear to hit you? Let's not take this lumber. Not taking it is impossible. Finian pointed at me with a furious expression. Vivian, don't go too far. Facing his anger, I smiled coldly and ruthlessly. I'm capable of much worse. I'll give you 1 minute to reconsider. The moment I finished speaking, Octavia immediately interjected. Finian, even though our baby hasn't been born yet, as long as I can be with you, I'd have no regrets even in death. In my previous life, just as we were about to completely eradicate the zombies, the last wave of the undead horde appeared near the villa. At that time, Finian pushed me into the mouths of the zombies to protect Octavia, who was pregnant and about to give birth. Little did I know, the reason I hadn't gotten pregnant in the 10 years I was with Finian wasn't because of me, but because Finian was completely infertile. Hearing Octavia mention the baby, Finian remained silent for 3 seconds. No need for Octavia to come over. She's not in a condition to move right now. I'll go let her slap me. Finian climbed over the wooden fence and stood before Octavia. The distance between me and them now is about 30 meters. I added, the sound of the slap must be loud enough for me to hear. Octavia remained silent, while Finian glared at me furiously again. Finian, Vivian, you're insane. I maintained a deranged sneer on my face. I am insane, if you don't do as I say. My death doesn't matter, but you, Octavia, and the baby in her womb will all die. The green tea bitch Octavia immediately covered her still flat belly. Finian, my death doesn't matter, but I don't want anything to happen to our unborn baby. Octavia's manipulative words instantly triggered the scumbag's protective instincts. Finian grabbed Octavia's hand and forcefully slapped it against his own face. From the moment I was betrayed until now, the scene before me made me feel nothing but pure satisfaction. Of course, to prevent Finian from fighting to the death over the lumber, after he fiercely slapped his own face 10 times, I told him the location to retrieve the wood. Finian and Octavia hurried off to fetch the lumber. Quentin and I quickly started boarding up the windows. As a year-round homesteading streamer, I can keep up physically. Neither Quentin nor I spoke again. Yet we efficiently boarded up the windows in perfect sync. While sealing the windows, I left observation gaps on every floor to monitor the outside. looking at the last window that got banned. I heaved a long sigh of relief. Finally, it's all done. It's just the beginning of early summer, and my white t-shirt is completely soaked with sweat. Quentin's gaze fell on me, a faint blush rising on his pale face. Noticing his unusual expression, I lowered my head to look at my own chest. I originally had a decent figure, but as a rural streamer, I usually wear loose, stain-resistant clothes for work. But now, with all the sweat, not only is the white t-shirt sticking to my body, it's practically see-through. Not just Quentin, even my own face turned red in that instant. The atmosphere was unbearably awkward. Quentin quickly interjected, "You go upstairs first to shower and change, I'll handle cooking." The guest room I stayed in was on the second floor, as was Quentin's bedroom, though they were on opposite sides of the staircase. I thought about taking over the cooking in the kitchen so Quentin could go shower too. After showering, I hurried downstairs only to bump into a firm, warm chest at the stairway landing. I looked up at Quentin, who had just finished showering. He was wearing a light gray casual loungewear, further accentuating his ethereal and unapproachable aura. Quentin's gaze as he met my eyes was profound. A drop of water fell from his damp, undried hair onto the center of my forehead. At that moment, my heart skipped a beat. I hastily pulled away from Quentin's embrace. "Sorry, I didn't notice you coming out of the room just now." Quentin's voice was slightly hoarse. "I made cod fillet and creamy vegetable soup. Let's eat first." The meat stored by Quentin, I've taken inventory of. #Chapter 7 Secluded Pastoral Life. If it's just for him to eat alone. Being frugal, it could really last a year. If you add me to the equation, this meat won't last a year. During the meal, I told Quentin, the current meat supply won't last the two of us for a full year. Before I could propose my solution, Quentin had already voiced exactly what I was thinking. "Quentin, we've expended more energy these past 2 days and need extra meat for recovery. The vegetables, potatoes, and melons you're growing can complement the meat supply. Together they'll easily last us a year." 7. I felt relieved when Quentin didn't resent me for consuming his meat reserves. During the meal that followed, I thought Quentin wouldn't speak again. Unexpectedly, he suddenly asked, "Don't you want them to die?" When Quentin asked this, his expression wasn't as zen-like as usual. His eyes were swirling with emotions I couldn't decipher. I took a sip of the creamy vegetable soup made by Quentin. If I really wanted them dead, I'd feel guilty. The rest of my life isn't worth ruining over killing them. Revenge doesn't necessarily require their deaths. Quentin lowered his head to look at the dishes on the table. His voice sounded somewhat muffled. "In the past, you said your family grew vegetables with the purpose of making every dish he ate something cultivated with your love." My eyes widened in surprise. "Quentin, you've been watching my live streams." Instead of answering me, Quentin asked, "Do you still love him?" My response successfully made Quentin choke on his own saliva. "Love him, my ass. Am I into him for his infertility or his brainless philandering?" At that moment, though Quentin's face turned red from coughing, the solemnity in his eyes vanished. I then added with utmost seriousness, "Out of trust for my roommate, I can swear to heaven that everything I just said is true. If I ever have positive feelings for Finian again, may I be struck by lightning." Quentin realized right after coughing, "So the child in the mistress's belly isn't Finian's?" I nodded. "Of course not. During the 10 years I was with Finian in the past, I never got pregnant. Finian and I went to get that medical examination done for this purpose. Finian served as vice president at his parents' company, and he was in a meeting at the office when I went to collect the medical report. At the time, the doctor hesitated before handing me the report. "Young lady, don't be too upset. The issue isn't with you. Your husband won't divorce you over this." But at that moment, like a fool, I was worried about Finian being too upset. I went to the copy shop at the hospital entrance and asked the owner to find a way to alter the medical examination reports for both Finian and me. That night, Finian stood in the garden smoking for a long time after seeing the medical report. After returning, he hugged me. "Finian, Vivian, no matter what happens, I won't let you leave me." I believed the sweet lies of that scumbag and ended up with a head full of green pastures. Got cheated on. In my past life, after learning about Octavia's pregnancy, I never told Finian. He became an unwitting father, trapped in that villa at the time. Even if I had spoken up, without any medical equipment for verification, Finian wouldn't have believed me. In the end I died, and this secret was buried forever. I concealed the matter about Rebirth and told Quentin about it in a very matter-of-fact tone. Quentin guessed what I was about to do next. Finian and Octavia, those two overgrown babies, wouldn't know how to grow vegetables without you. You plan to use the same trick as before, letting Octavia continue to humiliate Finian, and then find the right moment to tell him the truth. 8. Before I could nod, Quentin continued. Even if you had the original unaltered test report in your hands now, Finian still wouldn't believe you, not until the zombie apocalypse era is over, I said earnestly. Believe me, we will definitely live to see that day. 17. After that day, Quentin and I never left the villa again. Water, electricity, and Wi-Fi were gradually cut off. The entire city began to descend into panic and chaos. The villa's solar power supports the operation of basic household appliances, as well as the normal lighting of the grow lights on the vegetable cultivation cabinet. The grow lights can replace sunlight to allow vegetables and fruits to continue growing normally. Although I can't live stream, the daily tasks remain similar to those during work periods. I continue to manage various agricultural products as usual. Before the Wi-Fi went down, I downloaded a large number of various books and web series. These cultural and entertainment materials for leisure are enough to last until the day the zombies are eliminated. Chapter 8 The green tea really got slapped. During this period, Quentin and I had a clear division of labor. I take care of the agricultural products, while he handles the cooking. Quentin's culinary skills are truly exceptional, far surpassing mine, completely comparable to a 5-star hotel. Without the sun to bask in, I thought Quentin would spend a lot of time alone in his own room. But one day, Quentin suggested at the dinner table, if you still want to be a streamer after the zombie apocalypse ends, you could film all the scenes of you managing the agricultural products during this period and release them online later when the internet is restored. Actually, I've also thought about making videos, but I was concerned that filming at Quentin's place might invade his privacy, and if netizens dug it up later, it could affect Quentin's reputation. I didn't expect Quentin to bring it up himself. Quentin, I don't have much to do now. If you don't mind, shall I be your cameraman? In my previous life, before I got divorced, I wasn't used to having a live-in housekeeper at home. To enjoy our time alone with Finian, we only hired hourly cleaners, and I always handled the video shooting myself. Now Quentin is killing time by being my photographer, and I nodded happily, as long as you don't mind. I certainly don't. 18. Quentin changed his way of killing time from sunbathing to shooting video footage for me. The outside world was overrun by zombies, with horrific incidents occurring daily, turning it into a living hell. For the next 6 months, even though zombies frequently appeared and wandered around the area, none ever broke into our row of townhouses, just as I predicted. On the 25th day of the zombie outbreak, Finian slipped a note through the door crack. The note read, Vivian, let's wipe the slate clean on past matters. Now I'm running out of vegetables here and can't grow new ones. Write me instructions on how to plant them. This is the first time I've seen someone make demands so shamelessly when asking for help. I immediately threw the note into the trash bin. Quentin predicted, within 3 days, he'll come begging to you for real. A smile curled at the corner of my lips. I was thinking the same thing. Quentin, I'm finding we're becoming more and more in sync. A smile also appeared on Quentin's usually cool face. I hope this kind of can last. 19. Just as Quentin and I predicted, within 3 days, Finian grew anxious as we were nearly out of vegetables. Finian slipped another note over again. This time Finian's tone was worlds apart from the last. Finian, Vivian, I was also at fault for what happened in the past. I apologize to you here. Octavia and I can eat instant noodles, but the baby in Octavia's belly needs proper nutrition. Although Finian is a rich second-generation heir, he enjoys eating instant noodles and drinking cola. He has stockpiled 13 boxes of instant noodles with various flavors and 20 cases of cola at home. Although the amount of meat stored in the refrigerator isn't much, consuming small portions every few days would be enough to sustain him for 3 months. But after 3 months, without vegetables or potatoes as staple food, Finian and Octavia would either starve to death or come to Quentin's side to forcibly take supplies. The latter outcome is not what I want. The vegetables grown in the 2 cultivation cabinets here are enough to feed 3 people. I have no intention of telling Finian about the cultivation method. I left a note at the door. I can give you some vegetables, but only if you hold Octavia's hand like before and slap yourself in the face 10 times. The slaps must be loud. Record a video of you slapping yourself and leave the phone at the door. On the first day after putting out the note, there was no response from the other side. The very next day, when I went to the living room for breakfast, Quentin handed me a phone. Quentin, this is the phone Finian left at the doorstep this morning. I knew Finian's phone password. It was the month and date of my birthday. As I entered my birthday, I noticed Quentin frowned slightly. I explained to Quentin. The scumbag still keeps my birthday as his unlocked password, not because he still has feelings for me, but simply because he's used to it and can't be bothered to change it. Hashtag Chapter 9 The scumbag gets into character. 20. After unlocking Finian's phone, the video showed Finian grabbing Octavia's hand and forcefully slapping himself in the face with it. No matter how many times I watch this scene, it always feels satisfying. Next. I'll grow an extra portion of vegetables in exchange for watching Finian slap himself hard every 3 days. During this period, Finian even wrote notes trying to teach me a lesson. Finian, Vivian, I advise you not to go too far. I directly imposed the punishment of not giving him vegetables or potatoes. In the end, Finian had to bow his head to survive, and the video of slapping continued. 2 months later, the 87th day of the zombie outbreak. I sat on the sofa drinking tea that Quentin brewed for me with well water, watching the video of Finian getting slapped. I no longer feel the initial thrill of revenge, I remarked flatly, splitting one dish between 2 people. Finian has indeed slimmed down a bit, while his face has swollen twice its size. Noticing my teacup was empty, Quentin poured me more tea. Quentin, maybe we should try a different approach. A look of surprise flashed in my eyes. Another way. Is there a better approach? Quentin, to destroy both the body and the spirit, rather than having Octavia slap Finian, it would be more effective for Octavia to verbally humiliate Finian. My surprise turned into confusion. Would that really work? Quentin, in the short term, no, but over time, and in a confined environment, such repeated verbal attacks would amplify, even if they aren't true. Given enough time, they would become reality. 21. Later, as Quentin suggested. I stopped having Octavia slap Finian and instead had her verbally abuse him according to my demands. In the video, Octavia began shouting insults at Finian. Octavia, Finian, you're just a leech living off your parents. At the company, you're nothing more than a human decoration, and you can't even play games properly. What else can you do besides pretending to be a devoted lover? Octavia, look at your pathetic self. Have you ever earned money through your real abilities? You're just trash. Octavia, failing in career and being bad at games is one thing, but you can't even last 3 seconds in bed. Seeing Finian's face turn pale with anger in the video made me laugh so hard I was rolling on Quentin's sofa. Getting to witness such a scene in my lifetime is absolutely priceless. Perhaps when life is at its most triumphant, fate always arranges a little surprise for you. 10. My rolling motion was too exaggerated, and before I knew it, I was tumbling straight toward the ground. There was a carpet spread out in Quentin's living room. Even if I roll onto the floor, it doesn't matter. But at that moment, Quentin quickly reached out to grab me. He intended to help me up, but the instant I wrapped my arms around his waist, I ended up knocking him over. My lips landed on his fair and delicate collarbone. My face instantly burned bright red, and I even started stuttering when speaking. Sorry. I tried to get up from Quentin, his hands suddenly wrapped around my waist. Pulling me back into his embrace, I stared into the depth of his eyes and froze instantly. Quentin, what are you trying to do? 22. I couldn't sleep that night. Lying in bed, the scene kept replaying in my mind. How I fled from Quentin's arms like a fugitive. The next morning, the dynamic between Quentin and me remained unaffected by last night's little incident. I tended to the agricultural products while Quentin filmed videos of me. This was originally the outcome I had wanted, but seeing Quentin's indifference, a pang of bitterness welled up in my heart. 23. Day 127 of the zombie outbreak. When I saw Octavia verbally abusing Finian through the phone he left by the door, he pushed Octavia and nearly knocked her to the ground. Octavia, with her slightly swollen belly, looked at Finian in disbelief as he laid hands on her, just as Quentin said. Through gradual and imperceptible influence over time, words become the sharpest sword that can wound the heart. The way Quentin and I interact hasn't changed. Apart from Quentin and me, the elderly calico cat and the chickens kept in the basement home theater were the only things bringing a flicker of life to our otherwise lifeless existence. Under Quentin's meticulous care, he even managed to hatch a brood of chicks from the eggs. When it comes to food, as long as Finian doesn't go crazy trying to steal it, Quentin and I maintain a very balanced and nutritious daily diet. Besides filming video footage of me, Quentin's daily pastime includes painting, mostly cats and chicks, though sometimes he paints my silhouette. Hashtag Chapter 10 The cause of his death in the previous life. Once while tending to the vegetables, I turned around and happened to catch Quentin painting my silhouette. I caught a glimpse of burning intensity in the depths of Quentin's eyes, but when I looked closer, only his usual cool detachment remained in Quentin's gaze. Perhaps that fleeting moment was just my imagination playing tricks on me. 24. Day 181 of the zombie outbreak. Finian in the phone video was already emaciated to skin and bones, although Octavia has also lost weight. Her belly keeps growing larger. As Finian listened to Octavia's verbal abuse, I could no longer detect any trace of love or tolerance in that scoundrel's eyes. Their relationship is about to fall apart. There are only 2 days left until the 183rd day of the zombie outbreak. Remembering that Quentin died on this very day in the previous life, I started having insomnia. I wrote a note to warn Finian. There are many zombies nearby these days. Today I'm giving you a 5-day supply of vegetable packages. During these 5 days, you must not step outside even for a breath of fresh air in the garden. If I catch you, the next vegetable package I give you will be halved. I was restless at night and had a nightmare about my past life where Octavia couldn't hold it in and went to the garden for some air. Just as zombies rushed into the garden, to save Octavia and myself, in desperation I threw my phone playing music into the neighboring garden. The zombies heard the music and lunged toward the direction of the neighboring garden. I don't know why Quentin was in the garden at that time. Octavia, Finian, and I successfully retreated into the house, but Quentin was indirectly bitten to death by zombies because of me. I was burdened with a lifetime of unbearable guilt because of this. 11:24. Tomorrow is when the zombies attack, but actually as long as we stay hidden indoors, there won't be any problems. The moment we truly had to face the zombie invasion was on day 234. During dinner, Quentin noticed my unusual emotional state. Quentin, what's wrong with you? With dark circles under my eyes, I looked up at him with slightly reddened eyes and said, "Promise me, no matter what happens tomorrow, don't go outside." Quentin paused for a moment, then calmly replied, "All right, I promise you." I couldn't bear to face his death again. I asked Quentin, "Can you swear to it?" Quentin was taken aback once more, yet he agreed to my seemingly excessive request. "Quentin, I swear I'll stay by your side tomorrow and won't go anywhere else." Seeing Quentin make this vow, I let out a long sigh of relief. Day 183 of the zombie outbreak. After waking up and eating the potato omelet and vegetable soup Quentin made, I tended to the vegetable garden briefly before asking Quentin to accompany me to the 3rd floor. The observation gap on the 3rd floor provides the best vantage point to survey the surroundings. Quentin noticed I was so nervous that sweat beaded on my forehead and my whole body trembled. He grasped my hand. "What are you afraid of?" A cool sensation transmitted from his palm, soothing much of my tension and fear. I never thought about telling Quentin that I had been reborn, and in my previous life, I had indirectly caused his death. I told him, "There have been zombies gathering nearby these days. I had a nightmare where zombies broke into the garden. I'm scared." Before I could finish speaking, Quentin pulled me into his arms. He gently patted my back and whispered softly in my ear, "Don't be afraid. Just like in the previous life, zombies broke into Finian's garden but soon left. Octavia didn't come out." It wasn't until after the zombies left that I came back to my senses. 25. After that day, everything returned to its usual calm. Quentin not only helped me shoot short video footage but even assisted with the editing. The edited video can be directly uploaded to the platform as is. Every day, I can feel a bit more of Quentin's warmth and thoughtfulness hidden beneath his cool exterior. At the very beginning, I couldn't wait to get through this zombie era, but now I feel like I'm in a peaceful little world, as if in a peach blossom paradise. I wish time could pass more slowly while living here. Yet Einstein's theory of relativity always works against our wishes. The more you want it to slow down, the faster it goes. Day 210 of the zombie outbreak. I started seeing soldiers in hazmat suits clearing out nearby zombies. 12. I also saw soldiers who had been bitten to death by zombies. Day 218 of the zombie outbreak. Soldiers in armored vehicles have come again to clear out the zombies in this area. Hashtag Chapter 11 Safe Shelter. The number of zombies nearby has started to decrease. Sometimes you wouldn't see a single zombie for 3 days, but I didn't let my guard down, because the final zombie wave would occur on day 234, and the zombie wave would pass through here. At this point, in the video Finian sent, when Octavia insulted Finian, the emaciated Finian with sunken eyes directly slapped Octavia across the face. The scene of Finian slapping Octavia didn't bring me any joy. I realize my current emotions are less and less affected by that scumbag and that bitch. Instead, my feelings get stirred when Quentin catches a cold or runs a fever. Fortunately, even with a fever, Quentin had cold medicine at home, and his cold was completely gone within 7 days. Quentin, seeing you regain your usual vitality makes me as happy as going out shopping. Going shopping now is truly a distant and unattainable luxury. Quentin instinctively raised his hand and gently stroked my hair, smiling warmly as if petting his old tabby cat, after the zombies are completely eradicated. I'll take you shopping. Quentin's words felt like a soft warmth flooding my heart. But I wasn't ready to accept a new relationship. I turned away from Quentin's hand resting on top of my head. 26, day 230 of the zombie outbreak. I started having insomnia again. Quentin noticed something was off. Vivian, are you feeling unwell? I used my old tricks to brush him off. Although the government forces have cleared out most of the zombies, I had a nightmare. I dreamed of a zombie attack. A whole horde of them coming. Quentin comforted me gently. It's just a dream. Let me make you some tea to calm your nerves. I tightly grasped Quentin's hand as he turned to leave. Quentin, promise me, if only one of us can survive, you must live on. Quentin stared at me for a long time. 13, his gaze made my scalp tingle, yet he never gave me that promise. To prepare for the zombie horde, I began inspecting and reinforcing the wooden barricades on the windows. I even siphoned the gasoline from Quentin's car and poured it onto the garage floor. Quentin didn't question why I did this. Instead, he took responsibility for what I was about to do. Quentin, I'll reinforce the windows. Go rest over there. Quentin, let me handle pouring the gasoline. 27, day 233 of the zombie outbreak. I wrote a note to Finian. Finian, there's a zombie horde coming tomorrow. Find a place to hide and stay inside. Of course, if you want to get yourselves killed, suit yourselves. Quentin saw me writing a note to Finian. There was an unusual emotion surging in his eyes. They hurt you. Shouldn't we just stand by and let them die? Are you angry? Quentin awkwardly averted his gaze. No, I just don't understand. I paused before explaining. Their harm to me doesn't deserve death. Making them wish they were dead is enough. I told them only because I didn't want to feel guilty. Quentin didn't speak again, but I noticed the anger in his eyes had faded. Quentin, I'll make the curry chicken cutlet you said you wanted yesterday. I couldn't sleep at all that night. Quentin saw me standing on the third-floor balcony, covered in cold sweat, peering through the gaps to observe the movements outside. He said in a low voice, I'll keep watch, you go rest. But I shook my head and refused to leave. He spoke to me in a very stern tone for the first time. Vivian, go rest. I shook my head desperately, unusually insistent. After tomorrow, I'll go rest. As soon as I finished speaking, Quentin suddenly scooped me up in his arms. I panicked. Quentin, put me down. The zombies are coming. I've never been inside Quentin's room. When Quentin held me and opened the door, I was surprised to find an entrance hallway inside. Ahead was a heavy, solid alloy door with a fingerprint keypad lock. 14, Quentin, it's very safe in here. Even if zombies break into this villa, they won't find us as long as we stay inside. Quentin opened the alloy door. And when I saw the scene inside, I was shocked once again. Quentin's room was like a secret chamber nested within another room. There were no windows in the room at all, and there was another alloy door at the back. Hashtag chapter 12 is secret. I guess after opening it, there's a corridor, with the position of the windows on the outer wall of the corridor. This could also explain why Quentin was able to seal the windows outside this room back then. His room had a huge portrait hanging on the wall. The painting depicted a sweet and lovely-looking girl who appeared to be in her early 20s. It turns out Quentin already had a white moonlight in his heart. The moment I saw the portrait, the pain in my body was worse than when zombies bit through my neck in my previous life. 28. Quentin placed me on the bed. Quentin lay beside me, holding my hand tightly. Quentin, get some good sleep, and the zombies will be gone. I responded faintly, staring at the portrait on the wall as tears silently rolled down my cheeks. Quentin thought I was scared, so he gently wiped the tears from the corner of my eye with his fingertip. Quentin, who once was so indifferent that he felt life wasn't worth living, now looked at me with determination. Vivian, we can both survive. Ironically, at this very moment, I too felt that life wasn't worth living. I lay on Quentin's bed, unable to sleep, and I knew he wasn't asleep either. The next morning, I began to hear movement. 15. The violent crashing sounds were made by the passing zombie horde. Disorganized footsteps are getting closer and closer to the room. It sounds like more than one zombie. If fate truly won't let either me or Quentin escape death, then let's live without regrets before we die. Zombies are tearing down the windows outside. I turned to Quentin and whispered in his ear, Quentin, I like you. I didn't want to see Quentin's reaction, so I directly kissed his lips. Quentin didn't reject me. The emotions I had been suppressing in my heart finally erupted at this moment. I tore off Quentin's clothes and slept with him. I think dying like this would be worth it. Yet when everything calmed down, I belatedly realized all the zombies had already left. I didn't dare to look into Quentin's eyes. Quentin, I didn't mean to. I was stammering and accidentally rolled right off the bed. A gentle chuckle from Quentin came from above my head. He scooped me up from the ground in one swift motion. His gentle voice buzzed in my ear. You didn't mean to, but I did this willingly. I looked up at him in disbelief. But the woman on this wall is the true love of your heart. Quentin pinched my cheek, a flash of pain surfacing in his eyes. Quentin, this is my sister. She's been gone for a long time. 29. Quentin told me that his parents died in a plane crash when he was in college. At that time, his sister was still in middle school. Although they received a large sum of compensation, both he and his sister were frugal and never considered squandering the money. After graduating from university, he became an outstanding lawyer. Meanwhile, his sister started working part-time while attending college, tutoring middle school students in math to earn her living expenses independently. Little did they know that the middle school student's mother had committed suicide years earlier due to a divorce case. And he was precisely the defense attorney for the husband in that divorce case. That middle school student blamed him for their mother's suicide and killed his sister, having lost his only family. From then on he abandoned the profession he loved and held no attachment to anything around him. After Quentin finished speaking, he concealed the sorrow in his eyes. A gentle kiss lands on my forehead. Quentin, Vivian. Now I have the desire to live. 30. On the 241st day of the zombie outbreak. The last zombie in the city was eliminated. The war-torn city gradually began to revive from its deathly silence. Instead of moving to the rental apartment I had before the divorce, I continued living in Quentin's villa. Because of my earlier warning, Finian and Octavia also survived. On the 7th day after all cities resumed normal operations, an ambulance drove into our row of townhouses. Quentin and I stood by the window, watching as Octavia, covered in blood, was carried away on a stretcher. 6 months later, the new property manager at the townhouse didn't recognize me. She saw me taking a walk in the neighborhood and came over to chat with me. The property manager said, I heard the mistress living in Building 7, Unit 5 survived the zombies, but couldn't escape the tragedy of being pushed down the stairs by the homeowner. The mistress was pregnant at the time, about to give birth. She ended up hemorrhaging, lost the baby in her womb, and was left in a vegetative state from the fall. The property supervisor continued gossiping. In the end, that homeowner went crazy too. I knew about Finian going mad. On the very day Octavia was admitted to the hospital, Finian suddenly vaulted over the wooden fence and rushed up to me. He grabbed my hand tightly. Finian, Vivian, you've always been the one I love most. Let's get back together, okay? I pointed at my slightly rounded belly and the diamond ring on my ring finger. Finian, I'm pregnant. The one who's truly infertile isn't me. It's you. 16. From that day onward, Finian lost his mind. Just as I was engrossed in juicy gossip about my ex-husband, Quentin returned after driving 20 kilometers to buy me soup dumplings. Quentin parked the car by the roadside and walked up to me. Quentin, madam, some people are no longer worth your attention. Quentin wrapped his arm around my waist and guided me into the passenger seat. His tender yet domineering kiss landed directly on my earlobe. My entire face flushed crimson with embarrassment instantly. 31. Extra. Since my sister's death, my world has turned gray, a senior in the legal profession said regretfully. Quentin, there's no obstacle in life that can't be overcome. You shouldn't give up on your dreams. After our parents died in a plane crash, my younger sister and I relied on each other for survival. I've lost even my dearest family members. What's the point of having dreams? I bought a villa at Jinlin Newphew and shut myself away from the world. Each day I merely existed in the biological sense. About half a year later, a newlywed couple moved in next door. They seemed to be a loving couple. The girl enjoyed growing various vegetables and was a home gardening vlogger. Under the sunlight, she often called the vegetables babies in the garden, hoping they would grow strong. Seeing the smile on her face, my frozen heart seemed to touch a long-lost warmth. In the 4th year of their living together, the man cheated, bringing home a pretentious mistress while the girl was away. I originally wanted to tell the girl about the man's infidelity, but based on my observations over these 4 years, the girl and that man had a whole decade of relationship from campus romance to marriage. If I tell her now, will I still be able to see the warm smile on her face? But later, the girl still found out. She hid in a corner of the garden and cried secretly, yet resolutely chose to divorce the man. The girl got divorced, and just when I thought I'd never see her again, she suddenly appeared before me. She said, "Could you let me stay at your place for a while?" I didn't refuse her. From then on, because of living with her day and night, my world regained color and became vibrant again. After 6 years, I came to my sister's grave for the second time. This time, my eyes are still red. The difference is, I smiled and told her, "Little sister, your brother has a home again." Story 2, I'm an average office worker, and on the second day after I abruptly quit my job, a mysterious phone call made me sharply aware of an impending zombie crisis. So, I decided to stock up in large quantities and stay home, waiting for rescue. Today is the second day since I quit my job. I finally fired my terrible boss and the awful HR department without hesitation and left the company. For the next month, I plan to take it easy and be a couch potato at home. I have a decent-sized apartment of 120 square meters on the 3rd Ring Road, more than enough for myself. The building was handed over a year ago. Not many neighbors have moved in yet, as many renovations were delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, so there are only a few dozen households in the whole complex. To save on rent, I took out a loan for renovations right after buying the apartment, and I moved in as soon as it was ready. It's really comfortable living here now. However, the downside is clear. Because of the low occupancy, there are hardly any convenience stores or supermarkets nearby, except for a large warehouse-style supermarket, Metro, about 5 kilometers away. After waking up naturally, I plan to head to Metro to stock up on supplies and then comfortably binge-watch some shows at home. The elevator in my building is quite fast, and it took me directly to the basement level where I parked my car. My car is a second-hand SUV, quite unattractive in color, which the previous owner sold cheaply because of its ugly appearance and low-end interior. Well, I barely managed to join the ranks of those who own a car and a house, all thanks to loans. After getting my car, I headed straight to the supermarket. I must say, shopping on a weekday is fantastic. Hardly anyone around. I pushed a large shopping cart directly to the grains and oils section. As a big fan of carbs, I made sure to stock up plenty: 2 large bags of 50 kilograms rice each, 2 bags of 50 kilograms flour, 20 kilograms of dried rice noodles, 10 kilograms of pickled long beans, and 5 tubs of corn oil. The sales lady helped me load another cart and pushed it to the checkout counter for me. Then, I rushed to the seasoning and instant food sections. I swiftly threw into my cart 10 bags of salt, 10 boxes of concentrated broth, 20 boxes of various hot pot bases, 20 cans of luncheon meat, 20 boxes of spicy and sour noodles, 2 cases of 48 beef noodles, 10 bags of 1 kilogram frozen dumplings, 2 bags of black sesame rice balls, 1 bag each of 1 kilogram frozen chicken nuggets and black pepper chicken pieces, 10 kilograms of loose fish balls, 20 marinated eggs, and 5 large pure meat sausages. How could a couch potato skip on drinks? In the dairy section, I grabbed 5 large bottles of yogurt, 10 tubs of 1 kilogram Metro branded milk, a bag each of cheese sticks and cheese slices, a large tub each of rice wine and matcha ice cream. For beverages, I picked up 2 packs each of Coke, Sprite, and soda, and without hesitation, I swept through the snacks: chocolates, egg rolls, hawthorn blocks, bread, marinated chicken feet, duck necks, pig trotters, tofu skin, chips, and mousse cakes into my cart. Oh right, I almost forgot to buy water. I decided to get 10 cases of 24 bottles of mineral water. I figured all this stuff would be more than enough to stay home for a month. Yes, I was indulging in some revenge spending, planning to blow 2 months' salary on stocking up at the supermarket. After all, it's all for my own consumption, so I wasn't losing out on anything. While shopping, I thought to myself, if there were a zombie outbreak, this stockpile should be enough. But suddenly, the ancient genes flowing in my blood seemed to warn me that this still wasn't enough. It's always better to be prepared. I quickly shook my head to bring my thoughts back to reality. Life was normal. Where would a zombie outbreak come from? After finishing my shopping, I grabbed about 40 pounds of long-lasting vegetables and fruits, 5 frozen chickens and ducks, and several bags of shrimp paste and headed to the checkout counter. As I walked, I imagined cutting potatoes into chunks, baking them in the oven until they were crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, and sprinkling them with cumin, peanuts, and sesame barbecue dip for a delicious taste while watching my shows tonight. Since it's a large warehouse-style supermarket where bulk shopping is common, my full carts didn't stand out, and the cashier swiftly scanned my items. Hello. That will be 8,126.36. How would you like to pay? The cashier asked expressionlessly. I looked up from my phone, which I had been checking. Oh, Alipay, thanks. I quickly handed over my phone to scan the code, including the grains and oils I had just bought. I struggled to push two fully loaded shopping carts to find my car. The parking lot security guard, seeing my situation, kindly helped me pull the carts to my car. Next, it took me a full 15 minutes to load everything into the car. Spending money feels great, but moving stuff brings tears to your eyes. It's really heavy. I got in the car, closed the door, and locked it. I opened a bottle of peach-flavored soda and gulped down half of it. Just as I was about to relax and take a break before heading home to move more stuff, I suddenly heard someone yelling loudly on the phone outside the window, which piqued my curiosity. It was the security guard who had helped me earlier, shouting into his phone. Has the kid gone dumb from studying too much? There's no such thing as zombies in broad daylight. Just focus on your job and cut out this nonsense. Zombies? Could it be an actual zombie? After all, the older generation rarely knows about such things. After hanging up, the security guard turned around and saw me eavesdropping through the rolled-down window. He casually complained in a familiar tone, "My son works at a medical school. About your age." He insists they had an emergency patient whose veins popped out, grew fangs, and tried to bite people. They couldn't even restrain him with straps, and he guessed it was some kind of zombie. Can you believe it? Has studying made him stupid? With the bright sun shining down, where would zombies come from? With that, he walked away, hands behind his back. Sitting in the car, I fell into deep thought. Medical school, emergency room, bulging veins, fangs, and unrestrainable strength all pointed to a zombie. An inexplicable sense of panic began to rise within me. Logically, sick people should be weak, so why did all signs point toward a zombie? This is how it is with humans. Once you start thinking about zombies, your mind fixates on that idea, and the more you think about it, the more unsettling it becomes. And, to top it off, I'm a huge fan of zombie shows. Could this be the protagonist's aura taking effect? Should I buy more, if it's real? Buying could save my life. If it's not, who knows how long the supplies would last, not to mention the money spent. As I debated the pros and cons in my mind, the survivalist in me played its trump card. I immediately made a decision, quickly drew up a list, continued shopping, and took out my phone to call my parents back home to warn them. Although I wasn't sure if it was true, in the face of a pandemic, I felt it's always better to be safe than sorry. During my contemplation, the call connected. Hello, Mom, are you and Dad at home? I have something important to tell you. Initially, my parents didn't believe me and even started talking about matchmaking, which I sternly brought back to the urgent matter at hand. Mom and Dad, you have to believe me. Start reinforcing the roof and the front door immediately. Stock up on food, drinks, and essentials, and buy some extra padlocks to secure everything from the inside. If the neighbors ask, just say it's for a renovation. That should divert their attention. Seeing my serious tone, my parents agreed to start after lunch. I felt somewhat relieved. Sitting in the driver's seat, I marked the long receipt, noting which items needed to be increased in quantity by adding numbers directly. For example, rice plus 300 kilograms, bottled water plus 100 cases, Snickers plus 100 bars. For items not purchased yet but needed, I listed them on the back of the receipt, such as various types of batteries, high-powered flashlights, power banks, chargers, strong door stoppers, entire boxes of wide tape, and multiple times the amount of compressed biscuits, canned fruits, vegetables, and meats. I walked straight to the manager's office in the supermarket, which handles bulk purchases. As I pulled out the roughly 1-meter-long shopping receipt, the manager's face lit up with a smile. He nodded repeatedly, saying no problem, and he could deliver it tomorrow morning. I firmly emphasized, it has to be delivered today. It's only 5 kilometers away. I'll give you an extra 200 for your trouble. Handsome, anyway. He wasn't the one doing the actual work, just a few commands here and there, and he could land a major client. Why not go for it? The manager immediately guaranteed, no problem, it will be delivered within 2 hours. After the specialist had counted the items and calculated the price, I paid with my credit card. The manager asked me, I know your residential area, it's not far from here. But it seems to have a low occupancy rate, right? I continued the conversation. Yes, that's why I'm planning to rent a small storefront and start a mini supermarket to attract some customers. I didn't want to draw too much attention, just in case what the security guard's son said was true. Even now, I'm still torn about whether my overcautious behavior was justified. After all, the money spent through card transactions must be repaid in hard cash, but fortunately, I'm not one to drag my feet. I would need these supplies sooner or later anyway. Plus, during the renovation, I installed numerous built-in large cabinets, providing ample scattered storage space. The guest bedroom and the study could both serve as storage rooms for supplies. With that thought, I steadied myself. According to the security guard's son, the emergency patients were about to mutate and had started showing tendencies of biting and tearing. From the medical college in the south of the city to the third ring road in the north where I lived, it would take no more than 3 hours. Time was of the essence. There was so much to prepare: medicines, explosion-proof locks, self-defense weapons, protective gear, a complete set of repair tools, cooking fuel, large water storage barrels, ropes, candles, and high-powered binoculars. Oh, and one-way mirror film for the windows. Despite the low occupancy rate, I didn't want anyone to notice the large amount of supplies in my home. A few minutes later, I was at the outdoor supply store. I had never shopped here before, but stepping inside was like discovering a new world, a paradise for survival in the wild. Portable stoves, buy, multifunctional military shovels, multifunctional explosion-proof hammers. Buy extras, explosion-proof gas cylinders, buy in bulk. When the day comes that the natural gas company fails, these will be essential for survival cooking. Additionally, folding pliers, military multipurpose knives, solid alloy self-defense spikes, high-frequency radios, air guns, fishing lines, a large number of Ziploc bags, thick smokeless candles, and a high-powered combat telescope. Highly recommended by the store owner. The owner promised delivery within an hour. I gave a fictitious apartment number on the 27th floor, which was lower than my actual floor, and told him to just leave it in the hallway. My phone has a monitoring app, so it wouldn't get lost, but I mentioned that I had to return to the office for a bit, for the supplies from the Metro supermarket. I left an address on the 21st floor and instructed them to do the same. Due to the volume of items, unloading in front of the building would draw attention, even with a low occupancy rate. It was uncertain who might see what from which building and floor. It seemed safer to have the delivery men place the items in the hallways of unoccupied floors, and then I would use the building's 3 elevators to transport everything up. Why risk placing supplies on the 27th and 21st floors? During a recent visit to the property management office, I learned that our building had only 5 occupied units, all below the 10th floor. Placing items on the 27th and 21st floors prevented the delivery men from knowing I lived on the 33rd floor. After all, with the apocalypse approaching, the less people know and remember about you, the safer you are. Leaving the outdoor store, I headed straight to the hardware store. A home toolbox, claw hammer, hand drill, electric screwdriver, extra-large water barrels, and one-way mirror film all acquired in one go. Left similar instructions for the 18th floor. And then immediately headed to the pharmacy: antibiotics, cold medicine, fever reducers, vitamins, alcohol, adhesive bandages, gauze, all cascading into my shopping basket. The curious salesgirl asked, "Why are you buying so much?" As if it's all free. While paying, I diverted the conversation. "Well, the pandemic has gotten serious again. I took annual leave to go hide out in Tibet with some friends." With the essentials acquired, I closed the car door and didn't stop for a moment. Heading straight home, I stopped by a gas station to fill up the car and grabbed a couple of cases of bottled water, just in case. On the way home, I called someone hands-free. "Dad, have you guys started preparing yet?" "Don't forget." "Okay," only after knowing that Dad had already finished building the courtyard wall and reinforcing the gate, and that Mom had just returned from shopping, did I feel a bit more at ease. Turning the corner, slowing down, and driving into the underground garage. The next task was to focus on swiftly moving the goods. I couldn't rest until everything was properly settled. I silently cheered myself on. There was a small ad for XX drinking water station on a pillar in the garage, offering a really good promotional package, embracing the workers' philosophy that scoring deals is equivalent to saving money. I immediately called and ordered 60 barrels. I might have been the first order of the day for the water station. Or perhaps the first customer in this complex. The delivery guy's voice could barely hide his joy. promising to deliver them within 30 minutes. As for the bottled water, I left the correct door number. Firstly, they were too heavy and time-consuming to move. Secondly, I was running out of time. While waiting for the delivery guy, I went up to the 18th floor to move supplies from the hardware store. The items weren't many but were practical: a full set of toolboxes, a claw hammer, a handheld drill, an electric screwdriver, various screws and nails, plus 5 large water storage barrels, and window films for the whole house. Using 3 elevators, I managed to get everything up to my 33rd floor apartment in one go. I turned on the large shower heads in the master and guest bathrooms to start storing water. Meanwhile, I began applying the window films while planning the placement of other supplies. Purified water barrels all went into the living room. Explosion-proof gas cylinders and portable stoves were stored in the second bedroom, long-lasting food and drinks in the study, and other miscellaneous items like batteries, fishing lines, self-defense weapons, repair tools, and candles all went into the storage cabinet. I also kept a couple of handy, effective weapons within easy reach for emergencies. High-calorie ready meals and snacks were stored in a large sideboard in the dining area. Grains, oils, and perishable fruits and vegetables were temporarily kept in the kitchen and fridge, with the rest of the supplies kept tidy and accessible. In a rip and a pull, I had applied the protective film to over 10 alloy and wire mesh security windows throughout the apartment. Although it was a one-way film, it still slightly affected the indoor lighting, but that wasn't important. Safety came first. In both bathrooms, the water barrels were now full. I extended the shower heads to continue filling another empty barrel in a different corner. I wasn't sure how much weight the floor could bear, so to be safe, I decided to distribute the weight a bit. Ding dong, the video doorbell rang, and the delivery guy had arrived with a handcart. I hurried to open the door. The delivery guy was straightforward and got straight to work, carrying 8 to 10 barrels per cart, and after 6 or 7 trips, he had unloaded everything. Before he left, I handed him a Coke. He had gulped down half the bottle before the fizz had even settled and didn't forget to pitch a membership card as he left. Such hard-working folks like him and I are just screws in society's machine. And feeling a sense of kinship, I advised him, "Uncle, you've worked hard moving all this water. Head home early today. Get some good food and rest for a couple of days." I'm not that lucky. Just have to work hard to pay for the kids' school fees. I'm off. Call me if you need more water." Pressing the elevator button, the delivery man had already walked away. It was now 11:35 a.m., and the guy from the outdoor supply store said he'd be there in 5 minutes. According to the plan, they would set up on the 26th floor. I also contacted the manager at Metro, who said they were loading up and would be on their way soon. While waiting, I decided to grab something to eat to fill my stomach and checked online for any hints of a zombie outbreak. With the water boiling, I cooked myself a pack of tomato beef brisket noodles in the steamy kitchen, the bubbling tomato broth topped with an egg, a black pepper sausage, and sprinkled with vibrant green spinach. Looked like a Van Gogh painting simmering in the pot, compared to the heavy oils and salts of takeout food. I have grown to love the simple life that comes with plainness. Sitting on the sofa with a small milk pot, I break open a soft-boiled egg to eat with my beef brisket noodles. The richness of the tomato, the tender smoothness of the brisket, and the soft egg all burst together in my mouth. The sauce spills over, filling my mouth with fragrance, and warms and moistens my throat instantly. After scrolling through dozens of pages on my phone, everything seems normal. Using the keyword search function, there are no special anomalies on major platforms. Turning to look at the 60 barrels of water in the corner of the living room, I feel a slight disappointment. 5. Workers from Metro supermarket and the outdoor goods store arrived quickly and began unloading non-stop. While opening the apartment door, I overheard the supermarket delivery man ask the outdoor store worker, "Buddy, which floor are you delivering to?" When he heard the answer for different floors, he shook his head and looked around, saying, "This community is full of rich people spending money like it's nothing. It's killing me without making any money." Standing in front of the video intercom, I thought to myself, luckily, I didn't leave the delivery on the same floor. Luckily, I didn't leave the correct apartment number. About 20 to 30 minutes later, the workers from the supermarket and outdoor store called to tell me that the goods had been placed in the designated spot. I replied, "Okay, I've seen it through the camera at the office. Thanks for your hard work." Then I hid by the window until they drove away before daring to start moving the goods. On the 21st floor, The supermarket supplies were messily arranged along the hallway, especially the boxes near the elevator doors, which nearly tripped me as I exited the elevator. Apparently, the worker couldn't be bothered to stack them neatly and had just kicked them aside outside the elevator door. Such irresponsibility. I complained silently, but kept busy. The heaviest items like rice, flour, oil, and canned meats and vegetables were moved first. I used 3 boxes to block the elevator door, dragging the supplies into the elevator area quickly and forcefully, stacking them from inside out tightly. Not wanting to delay too long, I pressed for the 33rd floor on all 3 elevators, then randomly entered one, on the 33rd floor. Using the old method, I blocked the doors with boxes, then quickly unloaded the goods beside the door, making second and third trips thereafter. Half an hour later, the entire corridor on the 33rd floor was filled with goods, stacks of boxes taller than a person. This was the ultimate haul from the supermarket and outdoor store. Wiping the sweat from my forehead, I decided to finish moving everything in one go before resting. Bending over, I dragged all sorts of supplies, including cans, gas cylinders, and solar panels, into the house. The spacious living room suddenly resembled a small warehouse, which made me feel proud and very secure. After everything was moved, I went down to the 18th floor and started to lock the safety passage doors from the bottom up. The reason for this was to maintain a boundary with the residents below the 10th floor and to create the illusion that someone was living on the 18th floor. To cover for my survival on the top floor, the 15 floors in between should provide a sufficient safety buffer. From the moment I decided to make these purchases, I resolved that, unless absolutely necessary, I would never leave home. Weak as I am, going outside would mean certain death. Better to stay home and wait for rescue. 6. After locking all the fire escape doors above the 18th floor from the inside, the only access to the top floor was through the 3 elevators, which were the last security risk. Lacking a sense of security, I always go the extra mile to ensure everything is perfect. The main control for the elevators was in the rooftop machine room. I took out fire shears, a large wrench, and several heavy grade C locks, cut the top floor lock, pried open the machine room door, and then forcefully turned off the elevator switch. I ran downstairs to confirm. The indicator lights for all 3 elevators were off and the elevators were out of service. Concerned that residents below the 10th floor might report the issue to the property management, I quickly secured the machine room door, the rooftop door, and the fire escape on the 33rd floor with C-grade locks. After that, I decided to wait and see how things would unfold, heading home to continue storing water, charging my batteries, and watching some good series. If you're constantly worried about the security of your front door, you can truly rest easy now. Like you, I often feel a sense of insecurity. When I was having my place renovated, the contractor was also working on a villa. Curious, I asked him for advice when buying a door and ended up getting a blast-proof door for slightly more than the cost of a regular security door. I even got one for my parents' old house back home. Yes, a blast-proof door, just like the ones installed in that villa. It features thickened anti-blast panels, a choice between dual C-grade lock cores and a fingerprint system, and it's blast-resistant, anti-vandal, and fireproof. Each door certified. Even my mom said, "This door is really solid." Unassuming in appearance, but the material and craftsmanship are top-notch. I once asked the contractor, why would a villa need a blast-proof door? Because they have too much money and it's not safe. With a grin, he replied, "It's not just that, the owner has connections in certain circles, probably worried about enemies." Quite coincidentally, I didn't go for a stylish mother-child door or a security door, but instead installed a blast-proof door typically used in banks, vaults, and prisons, which now safeguards my life and that of my parents during these troubled times. Outside, the autumn air is crisp and ginkgo leaves dance in the wind while my parents and I make final preparations for the end times. We don't know for sure if doomsday will come, but as always, my parents choose to believe in their child. Back in their hometown, my parents secured the courtyard, locked the main gate, and meticulously checked around the house. They've stored ample drinking and utility water at home. Their cellar is filled with rice, flour, grains, oils, and various other essentials. During a shopping spree, my mom insisted I buy more beans, explaining that with the right temperature and humidity, we could sprout beans at home as a vegetable substitute. The 2 large pickle barrels that I usually discard are now filled with pickles, green beans, radishes, cabbage, chili peppers, enough to last a year or 2. In the small vegetable plot in front of the house, my dad rotates planting scallions, cilantro, and chives among other fast-growing leafy vegetables. Every time I come home, I'm greeted by the lush greenery. In the chicken coop, a few chickens and ducks cluck contentedly over their eggs, a picture of peaceful, everyday life, truly. When it comes to serious preparation, my parents are far better than us youngsters, but thousands of miles away, I'm still worried about the safety of the elevator. As a student of the humanities, I really don't understand the mechanics of elevators and am concerned that besides the rooftop control room, the property management might have other ways to control the elevators. After much thought, I bought fishing line from an outdoor store. Planning to tie several strands of transparent fishing line to the fire doors of each two-apartment floor as Plan B, this way, even if the elevator doors open, any zombies stepping out would trip over the transparent lines, which could tear under force, adding an extra layer of obstruction. After completing this task, I securely locked the fire door in front of my apartment and the blast-proof door, staying home to calmly observe any changes. At home, organizing the purchase supplies is a massive task. Just the food and groceries alone nearly fill an entire bedroom. Besides rice, flour, grains, and seasonings, there are instant noodles, crispy noodles, snail noodles, hot pot bases, ramen, egg yolk pastries, pickled chicken feet, chocolate millefeuille, cocoa powder, coconut powder, compressed biscuits, and various canned fruits, vegetables, and meats, all stored and organized in a warehouse-like fashion. With expiration dates clearly marked to prevent waste, the three-door refrigerator in the kitchen is also packed to the brim. The refrigerated section holds dairy drinks, jellies, puddings, beverages, and cooked food. The freezer is stocked with black pepper chicken, chicken popcorn, frozen dumplings, tangyuan, and various meats and shrimps. The fresh keeping section is decorated with colorful leafy vegetables and fruits. Looking quite appealing, I have long awaited such a peaceful, abundant life. Free from the incessant pings of work-related Instagram groups, demanding clients, and the monthly rush and panic of meeting performance targets, unburdened by the dictates of money, I find myself quite content. I boiled some water, planning to make a cup of lemon red tea, and sat by the window on the 33rd floor, slowly adjusting my newly purchased high-power telescope. 5 p.m., a bit before the rush hour, yet the elevated roads outside were already congested with a slow-moving stream of cars, their red tail lights stretching endlessly like a string of candied haws. Traffic jams at this hour are normal, but what's odd is that since the afternoon, the sound of sirens has been unusually frequent. Now, not far from where I was looking, on the bridge to the south, police cars and ambulances with flashing blue and red lights continued to roar by from time to time. Could it be that the virus has begun to spread? The thought of an apocalyptic pandemic sent a shiver down my spine. But turning to see my well-stocked supplies, I felt a bit more reassured. My mind raced to predict the situation, as the time and location seemed to align perfectly. Police cars, ambulances, and fire trucks were arriving in succession, all heading towards the Southern Medical College. It seemed that in no more than an hour, the virus would overtake all directions of the city. The extensive transport network was a catalyst for the rapid spread of the zombie virus. Subways, buses, and taxis were among the first to facilitate its swift dispersion, and with the workday nearing its end, the office workers pouring out were about to become the second wave of targets for the zombies. The scene must have been horrific, yet the thought of those office workers getting bitten as they left the building brought a guilty sense of schadenfreude. It's hard to estimate the time it takes for human-to-human transmission, but the suburbs where my parents live might be affected by tomorrow. It was urgent. I needed to warn my parents again. As I turned to grab my phone, suddenly, a loud bang made the whole building tremble, and the glass sliding door in the kitchen clattered loudly. I steadied myself, pulled over a chair, and sat next to the telescope, adjusting it to its maximum magnification to carefully observe the situation to the south. Fortunately, being on the top floor offered a broad view with few obstructions, although there were tall buildings in the front diagonal view. The angle was wide enough for observation, but what I saw next was terrifying. To the south, thick black smoke rose into the air, and my eyes caught sight of a gas station engulfed in flames and several people on fire stumbling around. The frontmost gas pump had been knocked over by a vehicle in a frantic escape, the fuel nozzle hung on the ground, and the leaking gasoline fed the raging flames. Several cars at the pump were reduced to charred frames. It appeared that the loud noise I heard was indeed an explosion at the gas station, across from the medical college. The road, which was a wide double lane on each side, looked like it had just been the site of a fierce battle. The ground was littered with random objects, shoes, bloodstains, and people in their death throes. Cars were scattered all over the road like bumper cars, some overturned, some ablaze. Some crashed into shops on either side of the road. A concrete utility pole, struck by a panicking driver, was halfway fallen and teetering dangerously. Dangling high-voltage wires touched the burning vehicles, sparking and crackling with electricity. A zombie, resembling a woman, staggered towards it, and her body convulsed with electricity, instantly turning a ghastly charred black. All around, fires raged, and beyond the flames, numerous nameless zombies who had fled the hospital roamed the abandoned streets. I couldn't hear anything, but just looking through the lens was horrifying. Movies are movies, and imagination is imagination, but once something like this happens in reality, it's truly hard for those of us accustomed to peacetime to comprehend. The burning flames and the dark red stench of blood painted a grisly scene, with zombies tearing at each other on the ground and in cars, their eyes filled with a primal desire for rotting flesh. People who were just walking home found their abdomens suddenly ripped open. Their intestines emptied in an instant. Brains were being consumed, the tangled entrails, tendons, and flesh were swallowed whole, with remnants of blood dripping from the corners of the mouth. The apocalypse has struck, and the luxury of leaving an intact corpse is but a distant dream. 8. Soon, the bitten corpses stood up, their veins bulging, eyes blood-red, and fangs bared menacingly. They arched their backs and leapt up, becoming hollow-eyed, savage zombies. The moment had finally arrived. I grabbed my cell phone from the couch and hurriedly called my parents, fearing that I might lose the signal. Hello, Mom and Dad. Are you both at home? Are you okay? Is the front door locked? Unable to hide my panic and anxiety, I felt a lump in my throat and almost cried when I heard my parents' voices. We're all at home. What's wrong? My dad, sensing something was off, immediately became anxious. Mom and Dad, I'm fine, but listen carefully to me. There's an outbreak of a zombie virus with a 100% fatality rate. Once infected, it drives people insane with a craving to eat others, leaving nothing but scraps. I know it's hard to believe, but the outbreak has started here, and it might reach you by tomorrow. You must lock all doors and windows, don't open them for anyone. And absolutely do not get bitten. Also, zombies are extremely sensitive to sounds, lights, and smells. Don't turn on the lights, avoid making loud noises, and don't cook with the windows open. Right, you also need to stock up on plenty of water to ensure you have enough to drink and use. Please be careful. After I rushed through my instructions, I still desperately wanted to fly back to my parents' side. If only I had known, I would have kept the family together no matter the distance. We understand, we'll be careful, but what about you, Jing? Can you manage on your own? Should we come and get you? Dad was clearly more concerned about my safety. This love only strengthened my resolve to survive. Dad, Mom, please don't go outside. I can take care of myself. I've stocked up on enough food and essentials. I'm just worried about you. Remember, if you encounter a zombie, the only way to stop them is to destroy their head. Hitting any other part won't work. I emphasized the precautions repeatedly. My usually decisive mom took over the phone. Let's set a rendezvous point. According to what you're saying, we might lose electricity, internet, and gas soon. What if we can't contact each other? We all need to try to survive. And once it's safe, let's meet under the big clock in Sea City. No one is to be absent. Agreed. It's a promise. Mom and Dad, I love you. Take care. Only come out when it's absolutely safe. Reluctantly hanging up the phone, I took a deep breath and began making the final preparations for the apocalypse. 1. Check all doors and windows. 2. Turn off all lights and ensure all curtains are drawn tightly. 3. Charge all power banks, rechargeable batteries, and electronic devices. 4. Boil 2 kettles of water and pour them into insulated flasks. 5. Simmer a pot of bamboo shoot, tomato, and pork rib rice. 6. Take a warm bath to stay fresh. In the rice cooker, the sparkling translucent rice had just begun to simmer. Braised bamboo shoots and cured ribs awaited their turn to be cooked. As I tidied up a drawer casually, I found a roll of double-sided tape that hadn't been put back in its place and a set of unopened New Year couplets with the character, "Foo," from last year. Where should I throw them? I only take the trash out in the morning, as my OCD doesn't allow me to tolerate too much clutter at home. Then, an idea struck me. Why not stick them on the fire door of the apartment across, number 3301? This would create the impression that someone was living there, and concurrently, disguise the fact that no one was at my place. Two birds with one stone. I applied the double-sided tape and peeled off the white protective layer, holding it in my hand. After peering through the peephole and ensuring it was safe, I opened my front door. I silently observed the hallway again, and once sure it was safe, I slowly opened my fire door. Dashed across to stick the tape on the neighbor's fire door and sprinted back home, after repeatedly checking that the fire door and the explosion-proof entrance door were securely locked. My heart finally calmed down. 9. While zombies attacked a group at the subway station, I was nestled comfortably on the soft sofa, enjoying a freshly cooked dish of tomato, bamboo shoot, and rib rice, browsing through videos on a popular platform. The platform was filled with videos of panic and screams. The sound of heart-wrenching howls almost ceaseless. Of course, there were also the brave and righteous ones, fearlessly sharing real-time information about their surroundings and aiding many who were trying to get back home. Zombies spotted on XX Road in the eastern suburbs. Be careful, everyone, our colleague has mutated. Stay away from XXXX. I was almost bitten just now. Punching them does nothing. There were also those who thrived on the chaos. A local blogger, chasing views, daringly filmed close-ups of zombies biting humans, causing a flurry of shocked comments in his video. As I was about to eat a piece of bamboo shoot, the live video suddenly shook violently. I saw 3 or 4 zombies pounce on him from behind, making me clench my fists and stomp, shouting, "Stop filming, run, run!" Unfortunately, he was no match for the 4 attackers and was quickly overwhelmed by the zombies. His phone crashed to the ground, and I listened to his screams from defiance to despair until they faded away. I frantically swiped through my phone, desperate to see what this city had turned into. More and more videos filled with unspeakable gore and violence appeared. People were looting supermarkets, robbing convenience stores, and even pushing the vulnerable like the elderly, sick, pregnant, and children towards drooling zombies to save themselves. Human nature is wicked, I muttered to myself, in times of crisis. Self-preservation is the first instinct. I didn't want to think or see any more. It was too distressing. The ribs in my bowl were tender and juicy. The succulent meat combined with the fresh taste of bamboo shoots and tomatoes provided a soft yet robust flavor. A true feast for the taste buds. The window was closed, the thick blackout curtains were drawn, and a dim floor lamp was on in the corner, filling the room with the aromatic scent of food. If it weren't for the zombie apocalypse, living alone like this would be truly comfortable and peaceful. Just earlier, while the rice cooker was doing its work, I indulged in a hot shower. Even in an apocalypse, a long-haired woman needs to stay fresh and not greasy. Originally, to save on renovation costs, I had workers install solar panels on the roof, so washing dishes and taking showers wouldn't waste gas. Savings wherever possible. Little did I know, the rooftop solar panels would also become one of the supports for my comfortable survival in this apocalypse. After dinner, I tidied up and brewed a cup of green tea. Peering through a small gap in the curtains, I saw the usually congested overpass even more jam-packed. Through a high-powered telescope, a few motorists who were unaware of the true cause of the traffic jam got out of their cars to inquire about the reason behind the congestion. A mutated zombie, running from the south, clamped onto someone's neck, staining the bridge red with blood. The zombies mutated faster than I had anticipated. I thought the virus would only reach the vicinity of the 3rd Ring Road after 8 p.m. Sirens were still blaring continuously. It was unclear whether the police cars had been overrun or if they were still bravely responding to emergencies, trying to rescue citizens from the clutches of zombies. The moment I drew the curtains, I was shocked to see that the lights were on in a building across the street, more than 20 stories up. I knew the layout of that building. The lights were on in the living room. The number of residents in my complex was higher than I expected. Lights were on in many homes between the buildings. They were probably still panicking, having just fled back home, unaware of the zombies' sensitivity to light and sound. Perhaps they were hearing the term zombies for the first time. Given that life was already challenging enough, I guessed that the majority of the residents, apart from their daily home lives, probably hadn't taken any emergency measures like stockpiling goods before the disaster. I was even certain that no one else had prepared as well as I had, except for that warning call I overheard from an uncle security guard at the supermarket parking lot. Even the uncle's son wouldn't have the luxury of quitting his job on a whim to freely spend on a credit card. After all, It's not easy to take leave from a hospital job. I didn't want to think too much about it, and just leaned back on the sofa with a stretch. This day had been far more exhausting than any day spent slacking off at work. I hadn't had a moment's rest, even though blackout curtains and the window film were enough to hide the indoor lighting. In these apocalyptic times, it's better to be safe than sorry. Keeping a low profile was essential for survival. I got up to dim the already dim night light, grabbed a soft coral fleece blanket, and lay down on the sofa to rewatch The Walking Dead. I hadn't been watching long before I couldn't keep my eyes open, and despite my phone hitting my face, I fell into a deep sleep without rubbing the pain away. In the latter part of the night, the roaring was terrifying, and I couldn't sleep peacefully at all. As the night progressed, the number of zombies increased, and their chilling roars were enough to make one's blood run cold. I wished for even more layers of protection around me. I buried my head under the blanket, but I could still clearly hear the piercing, desperate, heart-wrenching screams of the living being bitten. Being bitten was too painful, too agonizing, and too horrifying. I shook my head, not wanting to think about it, but my curiosity got the better of me, and I sat back down in front of the telescope, on the elevated bridge. The red tail lights of cars seemed to scorch the night sky with blood. It was hard to tell who was human and who was a zombie. Some were running, some were chasing, some were going mad, and some even knelt on the ground crying and begging for mercy. Cautious survivors hid under cars, only to be relentlessly pursued and bitten on the ankles by zombies, who dragged them out and ferociously devoured them. Timid ones hid in their cars, too scared to come out, only to be surrounded by a horde of zombies who could shatter the glass at any minute, turning them into a meal too small to share. Later, a car on the bridge was flipped over, likely because the zombies sensed fresh blood inside or beneath it. With a loud crash, the sedan fell off the bridge like a toy, followed by the sounds of tearing metal and breaking glass. Several relentless, man-eating zombies fell onto the concrete and continued their search for fresh prey. Our complex was probably not going to last much longer, especially being right next to the elevated bridge. How could a security team of 3 elderly men with a total of 6 teeth possibly stop the zombies? I unlocked my phone, wanting to remind my parents one more time. Fortunately, the internet was still working. I opened Instagram and saw unread messages marked with little red dots in various groups. I started checking them one by one, and nearly all of them reported that places had been overrun. Hints like "run" were everywhere. There were also middle-aged men, brimming with a misplaced sense of security, confidently live streaming to educate everyone online about the habits of zombies. They spoke as if they were experts, making the undead sound like friends summoned at their behest. Their broadcasts had numerous supporters, many of whom were fawning over them, begging to add them on Instagram. Beside the broadcaster's profile picture, a bright emergency kit was prominently displayed in the window. Thumping his chest, he promised, "Order now, first come first served, guaranteed delivery within a week." To hell with that old fool, I thought. I don't believe a word he says, profiteering from a national disaster at a time like this. Time flew by as I scrolled through my phone. At dawn, I opened the curtains and glanced downstairs, only to be startled. In the central garden of the residential complex, groups of janitors in their uniforms stood trembling slightly with their backs to me. What were they doing? Was this some new form of square dancing? The neighborhood seemed peaceful and serene, with no signs of being overrun. I quickly adjusted the binoculars, but still couldn't see clearly until they turned around. I gasped. Perhaps my binocular handling skills were lacking, because suddenly, a ghastly pale, bloodshot zombie filled the frame, staring straight at me, nearly causing me to fall over in fright. What a way to start the day with such a fright. On the second day of the zombie outbreak, my neighborhood had fallen. I peered out from various windows, seeing the city engulfed in black smoke, a gruesome scene of carnage. Only the hordes of zombies roamed leisurely, as if this was their golden era. I wiped my face with a wet towel and instantly felt more alert. I ran to the kitchen, turned on the tap. Water was clear and normal. Turned on the stove, gas was available, plugged in the charger, electricity was on, checked the messaging app, internet was working. Good. The essentials like water, electricity, gas, and internet seemed to be under government protection for now, but it was hard to say when they might fail. Lost in these thoughts, I prepared rice, chopped mushrooms, lean meat, and lettuce. I decided to first use up the perishable food in the fridge. Making a comforting mushroom and meat porridge to soothe my highly tensed body. Mushrooms, one of my favorite fungi, were my go-to comfort food under stress. I would cook a pot of rich, fragrant mushroom soup, which after consuming, would leave me sweating and my worries evaporated. As the rice bubbled vigorously, I leaned on the couch, exchanging messages with my parents and quickly browsing the latest news. A YouTube post titled, "Latest. Everyone share the current situation in your area," had a staggering 352 million comments. Coordinates San Diego, the city's overrun with zombies, stayed indoors and survived. I'm in Los Angeles, heard it's chaotic outside, many casualties, too scared to go out. Streets of New York are crawling with zombies. Any compatriots want to team up for a rescue? My brothers in Korea, heard the supermarkets are all cleared out. In Florida, someone mutated and was killed by the crowd. My boyfriend's in Austria, I'm in Fort Smith, zombies have erupted globally. Damn it, I'm hiding in a car wash with just a sliding door, no food or drink. Someone nearby please help. Without a doubt, this zombie crisis was global. People around the world were struggling between life and death. I had blindly guessed but unintentionally prepared, stocking up on essential supplies. However, most families can only hold out for up to 2 weeks, with the longest being 4 weeks. By then, it becomes a true survival of the fittest, a brutal struggle for resources. I took my cell phone with me to the kitchen to stir the pot. The rich aroma of mushrooms was released by the high heat, and as the spoon touched the elastic shreds of meat, pink and white, I could smell the fragrant blend of overcooked rice, crispy sliced mushrooms, and tender meat all coming together in the porridge. As a seasoned food lover, I firmly believe that a reassuring and fulfilling day starts with a steaming hot breakfast. Even as a disaster strikes abruptly and winter approaches after a deep autumn, staying in a safe house, with gourmet books for company, even the blandest days seem warm, prosperous, and flavorful. While ladling out some porridge, I suddenly heard shouting from the building across. I hurried to the living room to look. Through the window, I saw a middle-aged man and woman from the house that had its lights on last night, their heads poking out. The woman was shouting and frantically waving a pink scarf, as if afraid the zombies couldn't hear her. They were yelling, "Is anyone there? Is anyone in building 11? Anyone in the building across?" Seeing no response, they continued to shout their plea, "We've run out of food. We dare not go out. Can anyone help us?" Shouting like this in such situations is akin to suicide. Sure enough, the zombies in the neighborhood, like machines rebooting, uniformly turned toward Building 11 and started moving towards the sweet scent of their prey. The couple seemed to notice something was wrong and immediately shut the window with a clang, unaware that numerous zombies had already crowded the entrance of their building, banging loudly. If there are other residents in that building, they must really hate them by now. This is the third day since I quit my job abruptly and the second day of the zombie outbreak. The zombies downstairs are relentless, as if they never run out of energy. I timed it, and in less than 5 minutes, the glass frame of the door in the building across was shattered by the zombies who swarmed in until they disappeared from sight. Did the elevator in that building stop working? Were the emergency exits locked? Surely, that couple wouldn't foolishly decide to face the zombies head-on. I'm not a cruel person, but in these perilous times, I find myself without even a trace of a thought to sacrifice myself for others, feeling guilty for all the education I've received over the years. But then again, I think to myself, I'm physically weak, out of breath after running just 800 meters, unable to wield a large knife or swing a club. What good would my little bit of stored food do to save anyone? At this point, the only way to survive is to lay low, so I might as well just look out for myself. Now, I'm living the grand vision I had while working, unkept, staying at home eating, sleeping, and binge-watching shows. It's quite comfortable, except for not being able to go outside, which doesn't bother me since I have everything I need for sustenance, and honestly, I'm too lazy to go out anyway. Watching The Walking Dead over and over. Watching Rick and his group beheading zombies with a single swing of the knife. I sometimes feel an itch to try it myself, but it's just a fantasy. If I really had to face the challenge of fighting monsters after opening the door, I'd probably get knocked out before even making it downstairs. Bored, I scrolled through a social media platform, and after swiping through dozens of pages, an anonymous answer posted on March 11, 2019, caught my eye. It started with bold, enlarged black letters. "A heinous crime, an attempted cover-up, humanity will pay the price." What was it about? Would all of humanity have to pay for it? The following content, though shocking and somewhat dubious. Upon closer examination, it seems possible to connect this to the sudden global zombie crisis that sprang up. The main body of the answer follows. I am a stationed information officer in a country called Malawi, officially known as Nyasaland, a small nation in Southeast Africa bordered by Zambia, Tanzania, and Mozambique. In January 2018, there were incidents of people biting each other in a local village. According to a company salesman, it seemed like a mix of rabies, Ebola, and malaria. Those who fell ill exhibited strange behaviors and postures, biting anyone they saw and seemingly insatiable, only temporarily satisfied by fresh meat. They were photophobic but could still walk under sunlight and were extremely sensitive to sound and smells. The first case involved a man who collapsed after returning from the woods. When his young son approached to check on him, he was bitten and killed on the spot. By the time the family came to investigate, drawn by the noise, they found the younger son's body half-eaten and curled up on the ground. Subsequently, the villagers quickly subdued the infected man, binding him with straw ropes and confining him in a cage. During the struggle, he also bit the mother who was crying on the ground. I did not witness these events with my own eyes, but the company's salesman went down there often, so I trust their accounts are true. Soon after, I heard that the village was quarantined, and we saw helicopters flying back and forth in the distance. Rumors among the salesmen suggested that several fully armed doctors arrived in protective suits, guarded by soldiers with heavy machine guns. What exactly they did there remains unknown, but it's said that on their third visit, they vaccinated many villagers. Although this too came from local sources, the most horrifying part occurred in early March when everyone in the office heard intense gunfire and explosions coming from that direction. Our driver, who lived in the neighboring village, personally saw doctors in protective gear experimenting on living people with horrific outcomes. Those covered in blood were burnt on the spot and buried right there, due to a conflict of interest. I cannot disclose my name, but I guarantee the authenticity of everything mentioned above. I don't know what happened, but such inhumane acts deeply disgust me. I urgently call for an end to these terrifying experiments and for the truth to be revealed to the world, so humanity doesn't have to pay the price. This anonymous response immediately piqued my interest. The author disabled comments, which further convinced me that they weren't just seeking attention or traffic. I went back to their profile page, which had no other content. The reply was posted on March 11, 2019. Over 2 years ago. What could have happened in these 2 years? The last thing they heard was intense gunfire and explosions. Did local authorities, under external pressure, block the news and resort to armed force when they couldn't handle the situation? Were the patients executed on the spot, and the village leveled? Could those bitten and injected with experimental vaccines have mutated? Did the zombie virus originate and also break out in South Africa? Could the samples of serum taken be the trigger for this global zombie outbreak? Could the zombie virus be a bioweapon developed by some empire? But then, their own country fell too, right? A series of doubts confused me, and suddenly a loud noise outside startled me. I quickly jumped up from the sofa and looked through my binoculars outside. There it was, on the overpass diagonally opposite. A Toyota SUV surrounded by dense zombies was crashing wildly, flinging the zombies on its hood and roof in all directions. Deep, long bloodstains dragged along the side of the passenger and mixed with the dark purple flesh of zombies scraped heavily on the neighboring vehicle, resembling a grotesque, steel and minced meat sandwich. That earlier noise was likely from the Toyota's powerful drive forcefully breaking through the barriers. As for whether it was driven by a human or a ghost, it's hard to say. After another collision, a Toyota SUV was blocked by the car in front. As the zombies were about to surround us, the car door suddenly opened and closed again. A woman with long hair, using her bag to protect her head, rushed out. The zombies swarmed towards her. Someone was still alive. I clenched my fists tightly. She was shouting something while stumbling over bodies and various objects lying on the ground. She didn't get far before she was cornered by the edge of an overpass, trapped with nowhere to go. One step forward meant death. One step back was into the gaping maws of a horde of zombies. She glanced at a distant car and, without hesitation, jumped from the overpass, more than 20 meters high. The zombies, seemingly blinded by hunger, followed her, jumping down one after another. Even with broken legs, they felt no pain, eagerly pouncing on her still warm, tragic body to feast. My fingernails dug into my palms, causing pain, and my heart sank to its lowest point, just like bursting bubbles. Hope shattered before my eyes. As I was about to leave the window, I caught a glimpse of a little girl peeking out from a small gap in the Toyota's door, timidly clutching a teddy bear. She looked very young, about 4 or 5 years old. It turns out, the woman had risked her life to draw the zombies away from her daughter, sacrificing herself to give her child a chance to live. I covered my chest, praying repeatedly that the child wouldn't get bitten. I was torn. Not even sure if she should leave the car, hiding in the car, with nothing to eat or drink. Leaving the car meant walking into the lion's den, likely to face more danger than safety. What should I do? I was deeply worried, hating that I couldn't just scoop up this soft child in my arms. She looked so small, so cute, still holding a doll, at an age when she should be cherished in her parents' arms. Now, she had to face the cruel, bloody, and eerie world of zombies on her own. I kept watching and frantically dialed for help, but the line was constantly busy. Are the police still around? Is the government still functioning? Who can save this child? Who can save us? On the overpass, amidst a dense traffic jam, a few scattered zombies continued to roam. The little girl opened the car door just a crack and stealthily got out. She bent down, trying to make as little noise as possible, carefully avoiding the zombies that passed by. She was smart, unusually calm and composed. Not crying or making a fuss despite her fear, but there were no exits nearby from the bridge. To seek shelter under the bridge, she would have to walk about a kilometer to the south or north. In the past, such a distance would have been insignificant, but now, such a journey was as perilous as a quest for the Holy Scriptures, even for a strong man, let alone a child facing it alone, under the gaze of my binoculars. The child set off alone towards the north, perhaps. That was the direction towards her home with her mother. Whenever she saw zombies approaching, she would hide under a car, motionless until they passed, then continue on her way. Once, caught off guard by a man in a black leather jacket, she quickly hid in the gap between a white van and another vehicle, narrowly escaping danger. What happened to her after that? I don't know. A tall building blocked my view, making it impossible to keep watching. In this apocalyptic scenario, all I could do was silently pray for the child. As night fell, the city seemed to pause. The bustling streets with their honking traffic, the buzzing sounds, the lively music of square dancing, the eager cries of market vendors, and the joyful night markets where people freely enjoyed skewers and drinks have all been replaced by a deathly silence. The once brightly lit neon night is now dim and dark, the street lights extinguished. The high-rise buildings, once lit up, now have fewer and fewer lights on. It's uncertain whether they will ever light up again, or if it's been discovered that zombies are attracted to light and noise. Everyone is silent, barely daring to breathe, merely surviving and preserving life. I glance at my watch. It's only 5:25 p.m., but it's as dark as if it were 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening, without street lights, glowing billboards, and car tail lights painting the sky red. The city is enveloped in profound darkness. I quickly pull the blackout curtains closed, slowly turn the floor lamp in the corner to medium brightness, and then slump onto the sofa, pondering what to make for dinner. With the street lights out, the power system might also be on the brink of collapse. Maybe I'll cook something from the fridge that requires electricity, like a barbecue, although I don't have as many ingredients as a barbecue restaurant would offer. It's important to eat well even at the end of the world and take good care of my stomach. I pull out a multifunctional hot pot and grill that I bought during the Double 11 sales, lay out a stainless steel grilling plate and some grilling paper, and then head to the fridge to gather ingredients. The fridge is delightfully full: milk drinks, eggs, ham, bacon, fruits, vegetables, prepared foods, cakes, fish balls, frozen food. Everything neatly organized by category. As someone with a penchant for order, I despise clutter. A neatly organized space brings joy and satisfaction to both mind and body. Lettuce is a must, along with onions, enoki mushrooms, garlic. Sprinkle some barbecue dip on it, and it's delicious wrapped in bacon. Also, eggplants, mushrooms, leeks, potatoes, and green peppers. These are always must-haves at any barbecue restaurant. From the freezer compartment, I pull out a bag of duck intestines and a piece of chicken breast to defrost. Almost forgot the tofu. Since it's not feasible to buy the firmer type, I'll use the softer silken tofu instead. To be safe, I didn't dare to turn on the kitchen lights. However, as a culinary enthusiast, I had installed a row of battery-operated sensor light strips under the upper cabinets for convenience while chopping, which now seems like a wise decision given that I've stockpiled plenty of batteries. After washing and chopping, I finally sit down at the dining table, brush oil on the grill, and fire it up. Outside, the world is pitch black, with zombies, eyes bulging in rage and bodies rotting and bleeding, still howling, their fates unknown, yet here I am, able to sit peacefully at the dining table, slowly laying out slices of bacon, listening to the sizzle of the meat as it meets the fire, feeling incredibly fortunate. The warm, orange light illuminates the corner of the room, by the grill. I sprinkle onions, garlic, and other sides, their combined aroma whetting my appetite. I pick up a slice of marbled bacon, cooked over the fire, its aroma fills my nostrils, the tantalizing sensation irresistible. After dipping it twice in a spicy barbecue sauce mixed with crushed peanuts and sesame, I wrap it in a lettuce leaf and take a bite. Wow, the powerful chew, the rich cumin-flavored dip, the cooked sesame seeds bursting between my teeth, my mouth celebrates, my throat cheers. My stomach leaps with joy. The more I eat, the more I feel invigorated. What bliss! I shift to a more comfortable position, roll up my sleeves, and start on the duck intestines and chicken breast, not worrying about the future or what I'll eat next. I live in the moment, enjoying this satisfying meal. Whatever comes next is just a fleeting concern. 2 hours later, I comfortably let out a satisfied belch. I might just be one of the few silly girls who could enjoy a barbecue at the end of the world. After everything was settled, the wall clock was approaching 9 p.m. I peeked through a small gap in the curtains. The whole neighborhood was pitch black, not a single light on in any house. Could it be that I'm the only one left in this vast complex? Oddly enough, I felt a slight thrill about this because no people meant temporary safety. After all, zombies don't have brains or thoughts. They can't get into my house. After charging my phone, I quickly took a shower in the bathroom. I planned to thoroughly check the food and daily necessities I had the next day to see what needed to be used up soon, to prevent anything from going bad. It looked like the water and electricity would be cut off soon, and the zombies wouldn't be disappearing anytime soon. Before any help from the government arrives, I'd have to rely on myself. After tidying up and drying my hair, I wrapped myself in a blanket and didn't spend much time on my phone before I fell into a deep sleep. Perhaps because I was full and content, I slept deeply without any dreams, not waking up until 11 a.m. the next day. Rubbing my sleepy eyes, I habitually walked to the balcony window to look outside. Surprisingly, there were people downstairs. A shiver of excitement ran through me, and I quickly put on my glasses to see what was happening. Were the zombies gone? What were these people up to? They were running on the main road of the complex, 4 individuals, fully armed, their genders indiscernible. Judging by their builds, there seemed to be 3 men and 1 woman. Each one of them had a backpack and carried a striking red fire axe in their hands. Under normal circumstances, they must be desperately searching for food or essential supplies, but the bad news was, this secluded complex was deserted, with a low occupancy rate and no rented shops, not even a small supermarket or convenience store. Where would they find food? There weren't many zombies on the streets of the complex. Most of them were concentrated near the building opposite, so the group managed to run smoothly back into the apartment building diagonally opposite from the south gate. It seemed like they had someone inside the building to receive them. The door automatically opened as soon as they reached it and then quickly closed behind them. Zombies in the opposite building, a team in the diagonal building. These were all the pieces of information I had. I was alone and vastly outnumbered. I couldn't let them discover my presence. Also, they had just run from the south gate. What was at the south gate? The property management center. Were there still living people in the property management? Could they discover me moving my stuff through surveillance? Could they have informed the group I just saw? Was I exposed? What should I do? Restlessly, I paced back and forth, wringing my hands, trying to think of a solution. No matter what, I decided to call the property management first to feel out the situation. Hello, what can I help you with? A panicked female voice asked, slightly tearful. Sorry, I'm a homeowner here. I just wanted to ask, since I haven't moved in yet, do I need to pay the property management fees? I racked my brains to come up with a nonsensical question that wouldn't reveal my apartment number. Oh, that, I'm not sure at the moment. Homeowner, because our finance staff have turned, said the property management staff, sobbing. Are you okay? Then, be careful. I feigned concern, hoping to extract information about those people from her. Thank you. I was just taking inventory in the storeroom, so I managed to avoid the ordeal, but I just heard some fighting outside. A group of people came to loot. They even smashed the glass on the fire hydrants. It looks like the front desk's candy dish and snack cabinet were also smashed. It's terrifying. She candidly shared the details, resolving the doubts in my mind. What about you? Are you there alone? Can you hold on? I asked persistently, both out of concern and to gauge the situation. It's relatively safe. The storeroom is in an inconspicuous corner, not easily found by most people. We have some snacks and large barrels of purified water stocked up. The only problem is that the front desk's cordless phone can't be set to vibrate. Your call just now nearly scared me to death. That's good to hear. Take care of yourself and make sure those people don't find you. After getting a general understanding of the situation, I quickly ended the call. Now, the biggest threat came from the group of men and women in the building diagonally opposite. In these end times, there are no allies, only survival. Not exposing oneself is my absolute rule for survival at this stage, but I never expected that this group would be so ruthless. This is the 7th day of the zombie outbreak. The entire city looks like a ghost town hit by nuclear weapons, with zombies wandering the streets, devouring anyone in sight without leaving remains. The city is desolate and silent during the day, with ruins everywhere, and at night it's pitch black. You can't see your hand in front of your face. Water and internet services have been down for 2 days. The electricity is also very unstable, and the battery charger works intermittently, practically in a state of suspension. I sit blankly, staring at the blinking red light on the charger, my mind seemingly in a void. During these apocalyptic times, zoning out has become the least boring pastime. The neighbors have been relatively calm lately. The food they looted from the property management center should keep them quiet for a few days, but if there are many people, their supplies are probably running low by now. For most households, 7 to 21 days is the limit of food and water consumption. That is, of course, if they haven't been stockpiling. With nothing else to do, I do 10 sit-ups or 3 sets of planks, then look through the telescope, checking the windows of the nearby apartments, and zooming in to see if there are any living people around. Sure enough, around 1 p.m., that group brazenly came out again. One of them, with curly hair, even lit a cigarette and started dancing with a rhythm, tapping his foot on the ground. A big guy behind him knocked him with a punch, making him tone it down. A few zombies staggered towards them, and the big guy swung his axe, instantly decapitating them. With dark blood splattering everywhere, they didn't take the zombies seriously, handling them as casually as if they were bowling. From upstairs, I watched them clearly. The group of 4 was missing the woman who used to accompany them last time. Each was handling a big red fire axe, and the big guy and another man seemed to be skilled fighters, equipped with crowbars, daggers, and other weapons at their waists. Were they going to loot somewhere? Little did I know, the joke was on me. Looking at the stockpile in my room, I felt a noble readiness to face my fate. Resigned to death yet unwilling to let these scoundrels benefit from it. What's the most painful thing in the world? Knowing you're going to lose, yet powerless to do anything about it because you can't beat them if you go out. As I saw them approaching the building I was in, I clenched my fists. Silence all devices capable of making noise, then press your ear against the wall and listen. But why did they start with my building? They shouldn't know that someone lives in Unit 3302, right? Did they discover something? Is the door to the unit downstairs closed? The electronic door lock is out of power. Does it open with just a pull? At the end of my line of sight, the group quietly entered the building. It was as quiet as the silence of doomsday. I couldn't hear a bit of noise. It seemed the door wasn't locked after all. Soon, I heard the dense sound of footsteps and men talking. They are starting the sweep from the top floor. Damn, the fire door is also locked. And it's locked from the inside, one man muttered. Aren't all the floors below locked too? Just dismantle it, responded a naive-sounding man. I held my breath. We were only separated by a staircase fire door, unit fire door, and the door to my apartment. At this moment, any slight sound could expose me to the enemy. I pressed against the wall, clutching a machete, with my palms slightly sweating. Clatter. The sound of a screwdriver hitting the floor. Big brother. There are wooden pins on both sides of this door. Just unscrewing won't do. The naive-sounding man began to inquire. Was there, Big Brother, that tall guy? The next response left me stunned, panicked, and bewildered. Was this courage without wisdom or bravery with insight? The so-called Big Brother said, "Smash it. You should know, in the classification of fire doors, residential buildings typically use Class C fire doors, generally made from cold-rolled steel sheets and stainless steel, filled with insulating material, a door nearly 10 centimeters thick, How could you just smash it open? At first, when I heard they were going to dismantle the door, I was vaguely worried, but now I was completely reassured. The enemy is in the light, I am in the dark, keep smashing. During this conversation, I heard the brainless sweepers strike fiercely with their axes. The intensity of the violence was shocking, as if they wouldn't stop until they broke through. But who would smashing a door in the eerily quiet stairwell of this world attract? Bang, bang, bang. The loud noises were like heavy beats in the silent doomsday, sharply piercing the ears. Every strike tightened my heart, worried that the floor, laden with water and hoarded goods, couldn't bear the weight. I almost wished I could strangle them with my bare hands. I leaned against the wall, feeling every vibration of the wall and floor. My heart sinking little by little. Life felt bleak, flavorless, devoid of any hope. 5 or 6 minutes later, the hammering suddenly stopped. One of the naive ones happily said, "Hey, bro, the wooden pin on this side fell out." What? How could that be? At this critical moment, to be betrayed by the shoddy work of the greedy developers, such poor quality for a safety fire door. If they entered through the safety door, they would see it locked with a chain, see the fishing line in front of the elevator. They would then realize this floor was inhabited, proceed to break in, and seize my supplies, my life. Smash this side open quickly, dismantle the door. The tall one continued to command, the others seemed to see a glimmer of hope, and the bang-bang of smashing became even more dense and intense. Suddenly, I placed my hope on the zombies. Let them take action to deal with these lunatics. Downstairs, only a few scattered zombies wandered into the apartment building, while most clustered in the small square, seemingly trying to pinpoint the source of the noise. It's time to make a risky move. I ran to the balcony, lifted a pot of succulents, quickly opened the living room window, and threw it towards the open space in front of the building entrance, then swiftly shut the window and drew the curtains. The lunatics working in the corridor wouldn't hear this noise. My goal was to draw the attention of the zombies downstairs and lure them inside the building. With a crash, the flower pot plummeted from the 33rd floor and shattered into pieces instantly. Peeking through a small gap in the curtains, I saw the zombies indeed drawn to the noise, staggering cluelessly as they moved en masse into the building. The zombies really came. I prayed that the lunatics outside wouldn't stop. The harder they smashed, the quicker and more eagerly the zombies moved towards the sound. Their sensitivity to sound was like a cheetah scenting its prey or a bloodthirsty fiend tasting silky blood, unstoppable once triggered. Suddenly, a tremendous bang shook the room, making the lights flicker. The corridor's security door crashed down, and the lunatics strode in, immediately noticing the fishing line I had tied in front of the elevator and the decorations on door 3301. Holy shit, jackpot, someone's here. Because an additional fire door was installed outside the explosion-proof door, I couldn't see them, only hearing the fierce kicks at the fire door of 3301. At that moment, I realized how meaningful my seemingly foolish actions were that night. Creating the impression that someone was living there could protect me to the greatest extent. In a daze, I heard the zombies' roars and the trembling sensation in the corridor, like the bell ringing at the end of class when students hurriedly move up and down the stairs, dense and rapid. Do you hear that? The lunatics seemed to have heard it too, but they deserved it, starting from the top floor, disabling the stairwell doors, and now they had nowhere to run. Damn it, zombies, a whole bunch of them. I heard a panicked voice gasping heavily. In their frenzy, they desperately started smashing the door, hoping to hide inside. My apartment's fire door was also not spared, being battered relentlessly. Unfortunately, outnumbered, the 4 of them were quickly devoured, leaving nothing behind. With the zombies' unwitting help, I eliminated these few lunatics who had been coveting others' resources, but from then on, outside my door turned into a bloody red zombie paradise. Now, the only barriers between me and the zombies were the fire door and the explosion-proof door. Although it was just 2 doors apart, I felt relatively secure. After all, zombies don't operate doors, only humans do. Regrettably, from now on, I had to be careful about cooking odors drifting out and avoid making loud noises. The silent clock on the wall pointed to 1740. In the past, this would have been the bustling evening rush hour. Office workers, school kids, grocery shopping aunties, old men watching chess by the street, delivery guys weaving through traffic, and the endless line of braking cars, all together painting a vibrant, lively tableau of everyday life. But now, just 8 days into the zombie outbreak, the city was dead silent. Unlike the previous days marked by raging fires, looting, and bloody chaos. The city was engulfed in a suffocating silence. No human voices, no car noises, no electronic buzz, no cries, or even sighs. Just the hungry roars of the zombie horde dragging their bodies in painful despair. This disruption by the floor sweepers had turned. Despite having skipped lunch, I surprisingly found myself without an appetite. Feeling increasingly uneasy at the thought of the blood and ghostly zombies outside the door, I tend to be a bit of a control freak and very subjective. If things don't go as planned, I feel completely off, with a nameless frustration building inside me with nowhere to vent. However, the safety door to the stairs had been removed, and the last thing I wanted was to step in blood. Gradually, I resigned myself to the situation, convincing myself to cope with it, in this city devoid of lights. Darkness falls particularly early. By not even 7 p.m., the sky was completely dim. To protect myself, I meticulously drew all the room's blackout curtains and lit a floor lamp in the corner of the wall. Sitting in the shadowy sofa, unreachable by the lamp's light, I felt like the elderly at the village corner, trying to recall the signs at the onset of the catastrophe and pondering where to go from here. For modern people, a day without the internet is excruciating. I wondered if the state or government still existed. Were they organizing any rescue? I wanted to know how many fellow survivors were holed up in their homes like me. Were there safe havens for the city's residents? Where could one find the armed forces, equipped with heavy artillery, providing protection? Where could the desperate public find encouragement and hope for rebuilding in these apocalyptic times? Just as I was about to retrieve my headphones and turn on the FM radio in my bedroom, a loud rumbling noise suddenly erupted from outside the window. For safety, I immediately turned off the light and cautiously peeked through a slit in the curtains, keenly observing the surroundings. The noise was coming from above the elevated highway. I could clearly see a helicopter circling low over the bridge, seemingly searching for something, and it wasn't its first pass. From my 33rd floor apartment, I could have gotten a close view of the helicopter in daylight, but it was night, and I could only make out the military green color and the bright searchlights of the helicopter, unable to discern any markings or other details. After a while, the helicopter flew directly towards my residential area, giving off a cinematic vibe as if a hero in a blockbuster was about to save the world. Unsure whether it was friend or foe and concerned about potential high-tech equipment like thermal imagers and night vision devices, I quickly hid in the corner to avoid detection. Foregoing further observation, after lingering for about 5 minutes, the sound of the helicopter faded as it flew southward. The sight of the military green helicopter circling in the night rekindled my hope. The nation still stands, the government persists, and there is hope for reconstruction. Yet, I know all too well the darkness of human nature in these apocalyptic times. Discretion is paramount, and keeping a low profile is the safest bet. Have you ever been awakened by hunger? I woke up around 11 a.m., finally feeling the emptiness in my stomach. Stuck at home with nothing to do, books didn't interest me, and I saved the downloaded movies for evening entertainment. At this moment, only food could provide some solace. The electricity has been fluctuating these past few days, and a blackout seemed imminent. I needed to quickly consume the perishable items in the fridge to avoid waste. Although I had ample supplies, I couldn't afford to be wasteful. Opening the fridge door, the warm white light and cool air greeted me. After the last barbecue, there wasn't much left in the fridge, but it was enough to last a couple of days. In the fridge, I found half a bottle of opened milk, several yogurt packs, block butter, udon noodles, white mushrooms, seafood mushrooms, onions, carrots, half a stick of premium ham, and light cream. In the vegetable crisper, there were a small bunch of parsley, crown daisy, round lettuce, tofu skin, and 2 corns. In the freezer, there were several hard frozen chicken breasts, fish balls, frozen dumplings, custard buns, 2 whole ducks, and 3 whole chickens. After being disturbed by looters and zombies yesterday, I suddenly craved something warm and comforting today. Why not cook a potluck of assorted ingredients? For lunch, I made a creamy mushroom and vegetable udon soup with the various ingredients I gathered. Season the chicken breast with crushed black pepper and enjoy it pan-fried tonight. Without hesitation, I quietly closed the kitchen door to avoid disturbing the zombies with the clattering of pots and pans. Although it's probably unnecessary, it's a small effort for peace of mind. I boil the udon noodles in the pot for 2 minutes. In the frying pan, I melt butter slowly, the aroma gently filling the air and soothing the soul. I then stir-fry chunks of onion, slices of button mushrooms, seafood mushrooms, and diced ham sausage until cooked. before pouring in half a bucket of pure milk and letting it simmer. While stirring with a wooden spatula, I open the cabinet drawer and add crushed black pepper and sea salt. The delicious aroma of the food instantly increases my appetite. Oh, right, I almost forgot the soul of the cream mushroom dish. I quickly scoop the cream from the jar into the pot, making the sauce instantly rich and creamy, with the help of the flame. The mushrooms and ham enveloped in milk and cream dance up and down in the pot. Which cream lover could resist this creamy mushroom soup? I swiftly mix in the drained udon, adding my favorite crunchy lettuce and chopped parsley, making the dish complete in color, aroma, and taste. I turn off the heat, ready to indulge. The udon noodles and seafood mushrooms, coated in rich cream sauce, are utterly satisfying amidst the apocalypse. This must be the simplest alternative to Tokyo's cheese cream udon. Anyone who tastes it might momentarily forget the chaos, brutality, and endless pain brought by the global zombie outbreak. Just as I plan to eat directly from the pot, saving the trouble of washing dishes, I decide to be a bit more cautious. I gather some old towels, rags, and home t-shirts to tightly seal the entrance door. Now, I can enjoy my meal in peace, sitting in front of the telescope. I take a few bites and glance outside. I've become accustomed to observing zombies while eating, feeling no discomfort. Quietly, I marvel at the adaptability of humans. The view is filled with staggering zombies. The little girl I once saw on the bridge is gone. The middle-aged couple waving scarves across the building fell victim to zombies. And who knows what horrors befell the hospital where the outbreak began. What about the anonymous post about Malawi on Jihu? And what about the helicopter that hovered last night? Friend or foe? Amidst the chaos, each mystery seems to open a real-world escape room themed on apocalypse survival. What tomorrow holds, no one knows. Slurping the smooth udon and sipping the warm, creamy mushroom soup, a warmth gradually rises, nourishing my heart and bringing small beads of contented sweat to my forehead. Standing up, I pat my stomach. Wasn't this the life I longed for before I quit my job? For someone like me, who desires little, the intrigue of the corporate world is far less appealing than the tranquility of seasoning chicken in the kitchen. Day after day, I mark off the calendar, watching as over 2 months pass. The increasingly silent dead city makes me feel utterly meaningless. Though I have food and clothing, I'm confined to a small space, living like a zombie, lurking in the darkness without any hope of perseverance. On the calendar, 3 bold, deep red crosses mark the days the city was paralyzed. Water stopped on the 7th day of the zombie siege, electricity on the 11th, and natural gas on the 19th. There's a star on the 8th day because a helicopter appeared that night, but after that evening, the hopeful sound of the propeller never returned. Did it fly away, or was it pulled down by the zombies climbing its landing gear, leading to its destruction? That night, as I tried unsuccessfully to light the gas, my hope slowly drained away. In the darkness, I crouched on the ground. It feels like being dumped by a jerk, part resentment, part helplessness. In the foul-smelling, muddy swamp, the last vine that could have saved your life is blown away by the wind, leaving you helplessly frustrated. However, 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night, I continuously scan through radio channels, not missing any frequency, scratching with the tip of my nail. I desperately hope to hear even the faintest sound of a survivor. Akin to Chuck and his volleyball Wilson in Cast Away, based on past zombie movie experiences, if the zombie siege lasts more than 2 months, the survival rate of the survivors drastically decreases, unless one remains in a sturdy building with ample food and water supply, ensuring silence without any noticeable sounds or lights to attract attention. But under these circumstances, how many people are still alive in this city? Where is the safe zone? Are the government and military forces still operational? Are my parents all right? I know nothing and have no means to gather information. It's really tough. Just as I was anxiously pondering, suddenly there came the sound of a car braking and doors being opened from the road. The city is too silent. What used to be insignificant noise is now terrifyingly clear. The car stops on the road outside the residential area, and at the same time, there is an arrogant voice speaking. I hide my entire body behind the wall, using a telescope aimed through a small hole left on the edge of the glass that isn't covered with privacy film. Observing intently, a muscular, bald man in a black tank top suddenly turns around and points, startling me. I thought I was discovered so soon. Through the telescope, it's clear. They arrived in 4 jeeps, about 10 men, all male. Leading them is a red Tank 300. It's paint fresh but covered with a sticky, disgusting mix of flesh. The bald man Likely a trusted subordinate, is talking to their leader. While talking, he gestures towards the residential area, seemingly familiar with it, knowing it's a new and unoccupied development, making it safer than the street. The leader, wearing a black baseball cap, leans on the car's hood and surveys the surroundings. His age is indiscernible, but he's solidly built, with dense, intertwined blue-black tattoos covering his arms facing my direction, wearing shorts. His exposed lower legs show thick tendons, the bulging veins seeming capable of overpowering someone as feeble as me. I must not be discovered. I shrink back a little further. Soon, they make a plan. Two men jog to the iron gate, break the chain with a wrench, and push the gate open. The four jeeps roar as they accelerate into the residential area, eventually stopping beside a large gym area in the center of the buildings. These men are well coordinated. The ones who opened the gate now lock it with chains from the trunk of one of the cars. Several strong men unload outdoor tents and barbecue stoves from the vehicles, their movements practiced. It looks like they're setting up camp here, a closed environment, few people, many buildings, good for hiding. It's indeed a good spot. As long as they keep the noise down, it will be hard for zombie hordes to detect them. However, these people are camping right in the square in front of me. I must be extremely cautious. Absolutely not to be discovered. On the first night the Jeep convoy stationed in the residential area, I dared not turn on the small battery-operated night light. I walked gingerly, terrified of making any accidental noise. In contrast, they were loudly reveling on the wide, flat plastic square below, the leading brutes drinking and spouting crude jokes non-stop, swearing continuously, followed by bursts of roaring laughter. For a moment, I almost thought it wasn't the apocalypse. In the summer nights, I frequented a roadside barbecue stand, enjoying the evening breeze. Holding a smokeless candle, I entered the secondary bedroom, which now served as a storage room. Once the door was shut, I lit the candle, and the room instantly brightened. The flickering candlelight reflected off neatly stacked boxes of food supplies, providing me a sense of reassurance and solidity. The storage life, type of food, and expiration dates were all clearly marked with a marker pen. I pulled out a bag of vacuum-sealed Hunan rice noodles, a bag of pickled long beans, a few marinated eggs, and some grilled sausages, and grabbed a bottle of orange Fanta, planning to make a simple meal with the noodles. Unfortunately, I was out of fresh small chili rings and dried tofu, which would have been perfect with the meal. As I cooked the noodles on the small cartridge stove in the kitchen, raucous laughter erupted from downstairs, with crude jokes about capturing a beautiful female zombie to try something fresh. My God, that's a bit too perverse. At this moment, they were in the light, and I was in the dark. I didn't even dare to light a candle in the living room. Meanwhile, the intruders were freely drinking and making noise. The irony of the situation struck me, yet I was at a loss for what to do. I've always been sheepish, slow to warm up and not good with words. The leader at my first company once told me, "You need to learn how to change from a sheep to a wolf." Naively, I replied, "I think being a sheep is quite nice. If everyone were a wolf, life would be so boring." Little did I know, my words would come true. Because I was a sheep, I lacked the courage to venture out, to confront others at work, or to flee downstairs. At most, I mustered the courage to resign without another job lined up. Which is how I survived when the zombie apocalypse hit the city. So, whether it's better to be a wolf or a sheep no longer matters. What's important is surviving. In the darkness, as I slurped the last of my noodles, a woman's scream pierced the night from downstairs. Her appearance disrupted the calm of the deep night. Who was she? Where did she come from? What was she planning to do? I remembered when this group set up camp. There were no women, just about a dozen strong men, being of the same sex. I was naturally more curious. I quickly stashed the pots in the kitchen and glued myself to the telescope, but the night was deep, and I could see and hear nothing. It wasn't until after 9 the next morning, as I finished breakfast, that some noise came from downstairs. A woman, seemingly in her 20s, slender and delicate, with a small pearl hairpin in her long hair, which fell casually around her temples, adding to her allure and frailty, was being roughly handled by a strong man and pushed in front of the leader of the caravan as onlookers gathered. One of her dress straps had been torn, revealing a white bra strap, and her pale yellow dress with tiny floral patterns was speckled with blood. Big brother, my boyfriend was eaten, and they told me this is a safe zone with food and drink, but they forced me to do that sort of thing. Tearfully, the woman pleaded, her story pulling at my heartstrings. "What kind of thing, little sister? the leader asked knowingly, leaning in to lift her chin teasingly, followed by another round of sinister, lascivious laughter. If the woman wasn't naive, she would know what was about to happen. If her boyfriend, devoured by zombies, knew that his girlfriend had escaped one peril only to fall into another and be humiliated by a pack of brutes, he would be utterly despondent. He might not even rest in peace, haunted by what befell her. The woman collapsed to the ground, holding her head, shaking, and crying, seemingly wishing she could rewind time, not to trust strangers, not to go with them. She desperately tried to wake herself from this wicked and cruel nightmare. However, the difference between imagination and reality was stark. Soon, the woman was dragged into the back seat of a car, and the leader followed, his eyes gleaming with malice. The others stood around, rubbing their hands and posturing eagerly. Like bloodthirsty beasts salivating at the scent of sweetness, their ugly true natures fully exposed, they stationed themselves there, with a few venturing out to scavenge for food supplies and lone targets to abduct for their amusement and debauchery. A feeling of helplessness overwhelmed her. The dark abyss of human nature was something she dared not probe. In this apocalyptic world, it turned out that not only zombies but also fellow humans coveted the flesh. After witnessing the brutal acts of this group, my fear intensified, and I became extremely cautious. I dared not draw the curtains by day, worried that the thin film alone was not secure, let alone at night when I turned on a small night light for illumination. Recognizing my own lack of security and strength, I was well aware of my vulnerabilities. Thus, at the slightest disturbance, I sought to shut myself in, locking myself inside a room constructed of reinforced concrete, hoping to survive. Now with the enemy below, I had to be on guard, though it was overwhelming. Therefore, I classified the risk level as extremely dangerous. Exposure would inevitably lead to being devoured like prey, and all the resources stored before the disaster would be looted. I, too, would end up like the deceived women, becoming a plaything in these men's apocalyptic games. Have you ever felt this way? When alone, you can't help but overthink, driven by solitude. Since seeing the captured women repeatedly violated and pushed around under broad daylight, disheveled and naked, sitting beside the bushes bound and utterly helpless, the morals ingrained in me by 18 years of schooling often left me conflicted. During those days, I often fantasized that I had a hero's aura, imagining clever ways to rescue the repeatedly violated and humiliated women. But the apocalypse was not only a collapse of morality and a distortion of human nature but also a resurgence of animal instincts. Seeking benefits and avoiding harm was the law of survival in the apocalypse. During this time, one woman made a lasting impression on me. When she was brought in that afternoon, she wore black stockings, which, although inappropriately torn in several places, accentuated her fair, shapely legs. Her leather mini-skirt just covered her hips, and her knit top was pulled down quite low at the neckline. The men leaned against the car in small groups, whistling teasingly as they awaited the new plaything. Unlike the other women, she neither cried nor screamed. Instead, she flirtatiously primped and preened herself, climbing up to willingly kiss the leader of the convoy. Compared to the women who clawed desperately, this frivolous woman was clearly more welcome among the men, devoid of respect but seemingly tolerable on the surface. She drank a lot with them, played games coquettishly, and did not shy away from the wandering hands that reached out to her, eventually hooking up with a man and willingly disappearing into the car. Unlike other women who were either immobile or mechanically reactive and resistant, almost all the men were enchanted by her. She enjoyed the privilege of not being bound and could move freely, often clinging to the convoy leader, wrapping her arm around a man, and occasionally leaning in to rub against him provocatively. Through my binoculars, I clearly saw that other women treated her like dirt, occasionally throwing trash at her when no one was watching, but this defiant woman seemed indifferent, barely speaking to the other women and never complaining. After her arrival, the convoy leader, on a whim, decided to give the group a formidable and powerful name, the Black Tiger Gang, and found some cans of different colored paint in the property center to spray on the vehicles. That night, they lit a bonfire, gathered together. The atmosphere was lively and bustling. It seemed like a celebration for the team finally getting a name, or perhaps for conquering several women. To further enhance the mood, rhythmic tapping of glass bottles against each other was introduced. In short, they dared to do everything that society normally wouldn't allow. Upstairs, I was fuming, with their reckless behavior of partying every night. It was only a matter of time before they attracted a horde of zombies. disturbing the peace in what was a secure and sparsely populated neighborhood. But life is mostly about dealing with the unexpected, especially in a post-apocalyptic world. For now, I could only focus on securing my own little spot and planning my days ahead. In the storage room, fresh vegetables were long gone, and we had been eating dehydrated vegetables which felt significantly lesser in quality. So, I dug out a mushroom cultivation kit and some vegetable pots and seeds I had prepared earlier. Thinking of starting small, additionally, water was a big issue. Consuming without storing would eventually deplete our supplies. If one doesn't prioritize quality of life, scraping by can be quite content. Daily routines of eating, sleeping, and binge-watching shows, downloads from before the disaster, pass the time in a bland yet bearable way. Initially, I had covered all the windows with a one-way film to prevent prying eyes from outside, which unfortunately compromises the natural light. Due to the lack of sufficient sunlight, the vegetable seeds have failed to sprout, likely a lost cause by now. Fortunately, the mushrooms in the planting kit have not been a disappointment, growing rapidly. The online store lived up to its promise. Indeed, these mushrooms are easy to grow. By the looks of it, in a few days, I should be able to cook a pot of steaming mushroom soup. Before the disaster, a friend joked, "Some eat to live, and others live to eat." I must admit, I'm definitely the latter. I won't lie, the moment food hits my tongue, it truly soothes the anxiety and heals the spirit. About 10 days or so later, a commotion erupted in the plaza below. What happened? Listening closely, it turned out that some men had contracted some filthy disease. It started with mysterious blisters and hard lumps around their genitals, eventually turning into pus-filled sores. Some suffered from severe genital decay with yellow pus, swollen groins making walking difficult, and their bodies covered in copper-red syphilis rashes. They only realized too late that they had fallen into a web of lust set by a woman early on, driving them into a furious frenzy. In their rage, they dragged the woman from the side of the car to the middle of the road, pulling her hair and beating her ruthlessly. Blinded by rage, the men weren't satisfied. They smashed the bottoms of scattered wine bottles and repeatedly stabbed her flesh with the jagged glass from my end of the telescope. I was left wondering whether humans or zombies were more terrifying. Despite their wrongdoing, why did they still pose as victims? Their cruelty was not unlike that of a notorious forbidden dish, the honey mouse, also known as three squeaks, newborn mice, their eyes not yet opened and bodies bright red, were fed honey and pinned to the dining table. As they squirmed, they were picked up with chopsticks and bitten into, squeaking with each bite. Hence the name, three squeaks. Ah, 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 beast. As the knife cut into the woman's body, bright red blood dripped down. She couldn't hold back any longer and screamed with all her might. They intended to torture her to death. She struggled and gagged, her throat seemingly bursting with acid, but the more she resisted, the more severe her injuries became. In the apocalypse, death is the easiest escape. It's the incomplete dying that's most painful. The women who had once wronged her seemed to realize something. They had been mistaken about her all along. She was the true heroine, a hero. With her own body, she inflicted the dirty disease upon those despicable men, a fitting retribution. It seemed they wanted to do something for the suffering heroine, exchanging knowing looks. Perhaps they felt that since their bodies had been violated and they had nothing left to lose in this apocalyptic world, they might as well accept their fate. One woman, unnoticed by the guards, hooked a sharp piece of glass with her foot and hid it in her hand to saw through the ropes. She then passed it along, and one by one, they untied each other's bonds. When a team unites its strength to accomplish a task from the depths of their hearts, especially when it comes to revenge, it's almost always achievable. Women, they are too soft yet terrifyingly hard, like water, like silk, yet also like steel, like stone, merciless as a gentle knife, each strike deadly. 24. The woman on the trash can had long lost consciousness. Physical pain can drive a person insane or knock them out to escape the suffering. After a while, perhaps the group of men were exhausted from their venting, or perhaps they couldn't bear the physical discomfort. With pus flowing, they staggered into the tents in small groups. The little square quieted down, leaving only broken glass on the ground and 11 powerless women, and there, tied to the trash can, was a hero. Barely breathing and bleeding profusely, once the noise in the tent ceased, the women quickly stood up, gathered some shards of glass, and secretly hid them in their hair, balled up in buns. They seemed to have a plan, as if it had been assigned beforehand. Two kept watch. Two quickly opened the trunk, grabbed hydraulic cutters, and ran towards the gate. Two others slipped into the driver's seats of a black Range Rover and a white Toyota Prado. Another opened the rear car door, ready to help the injured women into the car. The others retrieved confiscated weapons and distributed them, then moved together to rescue the woman from the trash can. The women's team was well coordinated and meticulous. As they managed to get the severely injured woman into the car, the woman who cut the locks ran back, signaling "okay" with her hand. I really didn't expect them to go to such lengths. I thought at most they would drive away, escaping from these villains, but I didn't expect such a resolute action. Once everyone was in the cars, they floored the accelerator, charging at two of the tents, ready to crush them completely as a form of revenge. One can be killed but not humiliated. Acting both in self-defense and vengeance for their sisters, charging, backing up, reversing, and charging again. The gruesome scene at the site needs no further description. The women's suicide attack took the people inside the two tents by surprise, killing them under the wheels. The men from the other tents rushed out, stunned by the scene, then quickly grabbed their keys and stepped over their companions, running to their cars. The white Prado, blocked by a fallen tent pole, spun its wheels futilely as a man smashed half of the windshield with a fire extinguisher. The women inside, not willing to show weakness and never intending to just survive, decided if it came to it, they'd die together. One of them leaned out and stabbed the man's neck with a shard of glass. Blood sprayed like a once musical fountain, gushing non-stop. The black Range Rover was speeding away from the neighborhood, followed closely by a red tank and another Jeep, while the white Prado finally maneuvered around the pole and floored it to catch up. At this moment, the area below the neighborhood buildings was no longer bustling and chaotic, no longer filled with crass jokes, no longer echoing with the screams of torment. Only a trickle of liquid seeping into the plastic ground remained, so-called righteous fury, blood splattered in 5 steps. These women, deceived and captured, could bend and stretch, could mingle with the darkness of doomsday, and could also seize the moment to strike fatally. Truly awe-inspiring. I watched intently through binoculars. This sudden counterattack was too unexpected and thrilling. As they drove out of the neighborhood, the screeching of tires on the pavement sounded several times. Due to illegal constructions on the left side of the neighborhood, there was a blind spot in the binoculars, making it impossible to see what had just happened. Perhaps they were driving too fast or encountered some unforeseen obstacle. Soon, the camera continued to show these vehicles, but for some reason, they were driving south in the wrong direction. There were many obstacles on the road, and various collisions occurred. The black Range Rover at the front plowed through several zombies, flinging limbs onto the roadside barriers where they were smashed to a pulp, creating a gruesome sight. Suddenly, the Range Rover jerked violently as if it had gotten stuck on something, then flipped 180 degrees and crashed into a highway pillar, bursting into flames immediately. The vehicles following closely behind could not stop in time due to the unexpected incident, resulting in a pile-up. Somewhere, a car horn was damaged, relentlessly blaring and flashing, quickly drawing all nearby zombies to the scene. In an instant, the area was a chaotic inferno of struggling figures, good people, bad people, men, women, and those transformed into zombies all perished in the escalating blaze. Amidst the crackling of gasoline and successive explosions, turning into billowing black smoke that marked a return to silence. With this, the Black Tiger Gang, which had occupied the neighborhood for nearly 4 months, was completely annihilated. The explosions from the collision of the 4 vehicles were massive, lighting up the sky with fire and filling the air with thick smoke. The intense sensory overload of sight, sound, and electricity attracted nearly all the zombies in the vicinity. They gathered at the scene of the accident, excitedly wandering in small groups, then followed the trail of the black smoke heading south. Among the vast horde of zombies were elderly individuals with graying hair, strong young adults, and toddlers crying out for food. In this bleak world of ghastly figures, roars of anger sporadically burst from the depths of their throats. It seemed as though they were protesting the injustice of their fate, or perhaps expressing extreme agony through their contorted faces, silently communicating their desperate pleas for release. I adjusted the focus of my camera, and suddenly, the girl whose mother had sacrificed herself by jumping off the overpass at the start of the disaster appeared in my lens. She entered my frame unguarded. Her once bright dress was now stained and tattered, and the pretty lace edges were frayed and unraveled. The disheveled girl limped along with the horde, her gaze empty, with no one to rely on, her silhouette frail and bent. The doll she once held was nowhere to be found. She just kept walking with her frail arms hanging down. Perhaps, she had forgotten who she was, forgotten the way home. I hoped she had also forgotten her mother, and all that her mother had desperately done for her. The mutated zombies could rot away, but the living are left isolated, depending solely on their firm beliefs to endure. In a world devastated by disaster, without the internet, utilities, mortgages, or performance pressures, life demands greater self-discipline. Unknowingly, a year has passed since the zombie outbreak began, and I have gradually adapted to this unchanging state of existence, slowly coming to terms with the survival rules of this apocalyptic world. Back then, when teachers discussed the food chain and the dark side of human nature, I was skeptical. Little did I know, at first listen. I didn't grasp the meaning. Upon listening again, I found myself in the midst of it. At the onset of the disaster, I had impulsively thought of going out to save people, of sharing excess food with those in need, of trying to rescue the stranded with my own efforts, of smartly punishing those who bullied the weak. But later, one event after another led me to introspection. My capabilities are indeed limited, but in a world where even survival is uncertain, the depths of human malice can grow exponentially. Today, I feel that venturing out rashly is the least wise decision. Why leave the safety of my shelter where I have food and drink? As an ordinary person without any protagonist's aura, I cannot lead like Rick from The Walking Dead to break through and establish a camp, nor am I like Murphy from Z Nation with a vaccine antibody for protection. As someone utterly ordinary, even a bit clumsy, somewhat slow to react, a bit dull, in such circumstances, being responsible for oneself means not adding chaos to society. The older I get, the more I realize that a person's greatest skill is to look inward, to know their own capabilities and face them calmly. Having seen the malevolence of human hearts and the desperation of those who are starving, if one can still retain their conscience, it is indeed precious. Time has passed, and zombies are rarely seen downstairs now. Observing through a telescope, the vast majority of zombies are concentrated in the main urban areas, where buildings are densely packed. A couple of days ago, after taking inventory, I found that food supplies are still plentiful, probably because I haven't left the house, so the actual consumption was not as large as expected. Staple foods, fast food, snacks, drinking water, cassette stoves, and daily necessities are well stocked. However, the water in the large storage barrels has run out, and the growth of the vegetables has not been ideal, so I need to think of a solution soon. I plan to ensure absolute safety first, then develop the rooftop area for planting vegetables and storing water to survive more effectively. After a week of day and night observation, no zombie activity was detected inside the complex, and no traces of zombies were observed in other buildings either. At different times of day, morning, noon, and night, I listened intently by the door and heard nothing. In fact, there is no need to distinguish times anymore, as it is quiet at all times, a dead silent city without a hint of noise. Finally, the time for taking risks has come. I changed into a jacket with zipped pockets, as my obsessive-compulsive nature always worries about losing something. After double-checking that I had the keys to the front door and the top-floor sea-level lock, I grabbed a long axe, ready to step out. In case I encounter a zombie, I'll throw the axe to buy myself some time to escape, then quickly return home. The explosion-proof door is made of special industrial steel plates, strictly according to mechanical data and equipped with high-performance hardware, so once the fire door is closed, the safety of the explosion-proof door goes without saying. Taking a deep breath, I quietly turned the 12 bolts of the rotary explosion-proof door and peeked out. At this moment, I was still separated from the corridor by the small space created by the closed fire door, so it was so quiet that I could only hear my own heartbeat. I wedged a slipper in the door, leaving just a narrow crack open, and continued to observe the corridor through the fire door. The corridor was deserted and in disarray. The gray safety doors of the corridor were smashed and overturned, and the white floor tiles and walls were stained with blood, though it had dried. A male corpse lay diagonally on the floor, with only a skeleton and skull recognizable. The fishing line tied in front of the elevator door still hung a half-blackened arm, indicating how fierce the earlier fights with the zombies had been. After observing for a while, I mustered up the courage and stepped out of the safe zone. I needed to quickly develop the rooftop area. The necessary path to the rooftop involved half a flight of stairs from the 33rd floor. As a matter of urgency, I had to block the stairway to the floors below 32. Without delay, I used my stockpiling strength to move bags of sand, putty, and plaster left over from a past renovation that I hadn't had the heart to throw away. I stacked them layer upon layer, solidly, like a flood barrier wall during disaster relief. In the absence of red bricks and cement, this was the easiest and quickest wall to build. Okay, the stairwell area was now secure. But I couldn't bear to see the male corpse lying there, sleeping, as if nothing was wrong. I grabbed a military shovel, forcefully scooped it up, and threw it out the window along with the half-arm. I never thought that, as inept as I am, the only 2 times in my life I would throw something from a height would be to kill someone and to dispose of a body. This is truly surreal. 27. The lock on the rooftop door dangled brightly, still the one I had fastened originally, now bearing marks of attempted forced entry, though its core remained intact. It must have been left by neighbors from lower floors who wanted to survey the situation at the onset of the disaster. Unlocking the door, a warm gust of wind hit me, instantly clearing my head. Stepping outside for the first time in over a year, I found the sky clear and cloudless. Breathing in the natural air, free from car exhaust, was refreshing yet filled with an indescribable sadness and desolation. Looking around, the city was a mess. Ravaged and wounded, weeds had overgrown the desolate streets, filled with unattended trash, fallen road signs, and large trees that had crushed dusty cars. A breeze stirred, sweeping up dry leaves and twigs, rustling as they flew through the air before crashing back to the ground, blurring my vision and deepening my sense of powerlessness. Witnessing the city I once knew as vibrant and bustling, now reduced to ruins, and the happy homes now shattered. The casual goodbye of a commuter turning into a final farewell. This episode, marked by time, zombie attacks, and looting, will surely be noted in history. It was both chance and inevitability, merely traces of yesterday. I moved 4 large, empty water barrels from the house to the rooftop, spacing them out in hopes of collecting rainwater for gardening. I also brought out the solar panels I had purchased, along with a thick product manual, planning to set them up in the next few days to at least power some energy-saving lights and charge electronic devices. And yes, the 3 pots of barely surviving bok choy on the balcony needed to be moved up too, to better thrive under photosynthesis and the nurturing of sun and rain. That's the kind of person I am, claiming to be open-minded and self-deprecatingly heartless. Since there are no answers, I avoid dwelling on them. Dwelling is futile. Better to think about how to make the best use of current resources and live well in the moment. If you ask me which day of the apocalypse it is, I could only give a rough estimate, as my calendar ran out long ago and I can't remember the exact date or day of the week. When I used the last page of that calendar, I forgot to mark it, and only remembered a few days later. I simply stopped keeping track. Knowing roughly the time was enough, whether living in oblivion or striving not to waste time. Knowing the date or not, I can still make each day count. When the vegetables are lush and the mushrooms ripe for picking, I plan to cook a nice meal, enjoy it with the sunset and stars, and fondly remember my parents and the beautiful life we once had. 28. After making use of the rooftop space, life became much more comfortable. At least I could come up here each day to stretch and enjoy the natural breeze. The important thing is that the view from the rooftop is much better than from inside the room, offering a 360-degree unobstructed panoramic view in all directions, north, south, east, and west. This is why occupying high ground was so crucial in ancient military strategy. A year and 6 months into the zombie crisis, my daily routine revolves around observing, eating, gardening, reinforcing checks, entertainment, and sleeping. Our food supplies are still ample, in some ways. Most people underestimate the importance of community and overestimate the significance of solitude. When human desires are not insatiable and free from the manipulation of capital, and when we discard the mentality of fearing inequality over scarcity, the material needs for life are actually quite limited. The storage room is filled box after box with spicy strips, chicken feet, duck necks, chicken wings, and various flavors of chips and crispy noodles, milk tea, coffee, fruit juice, sparkling water, along with instant noodles, canned luncheon meat, and various other canned goods are all at your disposal, leaving no room for excessive cravings. Ever since I moved the planters up here, the growth of bok choy, chives, green onions, and garlic sprouts has been impressive, especially the chives and garlic sprouts, which provide a great sense of achievement with each harvest. I've enjoyed mushrooms several times, with the shiitake mushrooms offering the freshest taste. On a cloudy morning, I set up a sunshade, placed a small camping table and chairs, and a cartridge stove, preparing for a mini outdoor hot pot. Solo dining doesn't require much preparation, just open a bag of buttery base and sesame sauce, slice some luncheon meat, rinse vacuum-packed duck intestines, soak some vermicelli with wood ear mushrooms and sausages, then throw in a handful of greens and mushrooms into the pot. As the breeze blows while I'm cooking, the aroma quickly disperses in the air. If one doesn't mind the extensive damage and ruins throughout the city, it's quite a pleasant and comfortable setting. During a break in the meal, the sudden sound of a helicopter roaring through the thick clouds, appearing and disappearing, prompted me to turn off the stove and close the lid. I considered running back inside, fearing detection by high-altitude surveillance, so I curled up in a corner of the platform, silently observing. The helicopter, dark green in color, hovered near the highway for a moment before a loudspeaker announced, "Good morning to all the surviving citizens." I froze, unsure whether the voice represented friend or foe, whether to go out and wave, to signal for help. After a moment's thought, I decided to stay put. In 1 hour, a global operation to eliminate zombies will commence, and our city will join the fight. Please stay in the safe zones and take good care of yourselves. The helicopter continued to fly around, repeatedly broadcasting this message. Overwhelmed, I broke down in tears. There were still people alive. There were still armed forces. The nation hadn't abandoned us, although I didn't know how many survivors were nearby. Where there are people, there's hope, and where there's action, there's belief. Taking advantage of the helicopter moving away, I rushed out from the rooftop, locked the door, and hurried back home to lock up and witness this historic moment. From what I've observed so far, the zombies are becoming fewer and slower, nowhere near as agile as they were at the onset of the disaster. In an hour, I wondered what methods the nation would use to eradicate the zombies. Would they deploy armed squads to clear areas, or drop bombs in zones densely populated by zombies? Was a vaccine for the zombie virus ready? When would post-disaster reconstruction begin? Would I need to start repaying credit card debts, car loans, and mortgages again? And would the helicopters notify the towns where my parents lived? After the concentrated extermination, could we finally step out and gather? At this moment, the excitement and anxiety felt like the anticipation and nervousness before a first date, wondering if the man would meet my expectations, or worrying about running out of things to talk about. Although my meal was interrupted earlier, I was no longer focused on my hunger. I simply grabbed my backpack and began packing for what might come next. Soon, a sharp alarm rang out from the city center, piercing and continuous, as if to attract all zombies from every direction for a collective annihilation. After more than a year of living cautiously, scared to turn on lights, play music, or make noise, I was finally able to confront the zombies directly and loudly, through the lens of my binoculars. Zombie hordes, in groups of 3s and 5s, staggered toward the source of the noise, unaware that what awaited them was either a fiery return or a release. The alarm sounded continuously for a full 24 hours, punctuated by 2 or 3 significant explosions that sent flames shooting into the sky and thick black smoke billowing from buildings. In the following days, the alarm frequency decreased from every hour to every 3 hours, and then to every 6 hours. The source of the alarms also expanded outward, gradually increasing the affected area. By the 5th day, not a single zombie could be seen through the telescope in the surrounding areas. I figured it might be safe to go outside, but remembering my parents' advice to ensure absolute safety before leaving, I steadied my nerves and planned my route and mode of travel. The rendezvous point with my parents was in City C, located between my city and my parents' home. I was born in City C and studied there until high school. It was also my grandparents' hometown. With no mobile signal and the zombie threat temporarily subdued, rushing to the garage was not the safest option. After all, without an elevator, there were over 30 floors of stairs to descend, and in the pitch-black garage, what if there were still zombies? The car hadn't been started in a year and a half. What if it wouldn't start? After much deliberation, I set my sights on a shared bicycle lying on the roadside below. The streets were cluttered with too many vehicles, making driving difficult, and electric bikes couldn't recharge for long-distance travel. Breaking the lock on a shared bicycle would allow for a silent, smooth ride, which seemed convenient. In case of encountering zombies, a bicycle offers a quick and agile escape, far swifter than running. On September 29th, the sound of helicopters circling overhead returned, the loudspeakers broadcasting a confident and uplifting message. All surviving citizens, please take note, our city's operation to eradicate zombies has been completed. citizens may cautiously leave their homes and reunite with family and friends. Please ensure your personal safety. The loudspeakers repeated these phrases, scattering hope of renewed life across the skies, as I cheerfully got dressed, packed my bag, and chose a suitable weapon to prepare for departure. Survivors were already running down to the streets nearby, strangers embracing and high-fiving each other, sharing the hardships endured during the apocalypse. Without hesitation, I left the residential area and headed towards the Grand Clock in City C, eager to reunite with my long-separated parents. As the prologue to the Century Altar of China states, mighty winds and raging tides, the mythical dragon of the flood totem, the phoenix reborn from fierce flames, the passionate lands amid war and smoke, restoring order in chaos, upholding structures amidst ruins. The spring breeze greens the land anew, as China bathes in the morning sun. Side story, origin, 1. In the medical college south of the city, a middle-aged male patient lay on a resuscitation bed. He was strapped down tightly but struggled with undiminished strength, causing the bed to shake violently. Rushing to the emergency, Chief Physician Boyd asked while checking the monitors, what was the patient's condition upon arrival. The patient was brought in by an emergency call from near the New Southern train station, reported to have suddenly collapsed and convulsed, with no identification on him. His blood pressure was 6,038, increasingly dropping. We've administered alpha-adrenergic agonists, but there's been no improvement, strangely. The patient's pupils began to dilate while his strength increased tremendously, and his exposed veins began to bulge, the head nurse reported truthfully, growing more uncertain towards the end. That's odd. Have the blood test results come back? Dr. Boyd asked urgently. They've been sent for testing, but it doesn't quite look like blood anymore. It's unusually dark, reported a nurse assisting with the patient. Director Boyd, the system has pulled up the records, but this, the nurse, operating the computer, clutched at the rims of her glasses, her face a mix of disbelief and shock as she stared at the screen. Before Director Boyd could take a look, sharp and jarring sounds erupted from the emergency bed. Bang, bang, bang. On closer inspection, it was the patient, using the gap between his spine and the bed to violently rock up and down. The noise wasn't like flesh hitting metal. It was more like the heavy clanking of hard bones against a steel plate. Seeing that 3 nurses and 1 doctor couldn't control the situation, Director Boyd didn't hesitate. She ran to the head of the bed to help restrain the patient, shouting, "Administer phenobarbital, now, calm him down." The emergency room descended into chaos. Even the experienced Director Boyd and the head nurse exchanged puzzled looks, their faces filled with confusion. The rate at which the mutation spread among people was alarming. Soon, the entire South City Medical College was overwhelmed. In the emergency room of the medical college, a high dose of phenobarbital not only failed to calm the patient but seemed to accelerate the mutation process. After personally administering the injection, Director Boyd watched as the middle-aged man, who had been struggling violently, suddenly became still, and the monitor slowly flatlined. The tension among the medical staff plummeted with the patient's death, and silence fell. "Write the death report." I did what I could. Director Boyd hadn't finished speaking when her forearm was gripped tightly by a powerful hand, immobilizing her. The head nurse was the first to notice something was wrong and yelled, "Look at his veins." At that moment, everyone saw the patient's skin turn a dark purple, his veins bulging as if they were about to burst, his eyeballs bloodshot and bulging, his jaw dislocated, and his mouth open twice the size of a normal human's, emitting a deep, hoarse roar. Call security now." Director Boyd, abandoning her usual composed demeanor, stomped and flailed, shouting for security. "Hurry, get security." Suddenly, all 4 people in the room dashed out to find help, leaving Director Boyd increasingly frantic. In a desperate moment, she managed to grab a scalpel with her left hand. With a swift motion, she used all her strength to pull back, slicing through the fingers of the corpse, which were still gripping her. Thick, foul-smelling black blood gushed out, spattering the floor. Having narrowly escaped danger, Director Boyd didn't stop to think. She ran out into the emergency corridor, where she collided head-on with the head nurse and a group of security guards armed with riot forks rushing towards her. "What happened, Director Boyd?" the lead security guard asked, his face filled with curiosity. After all, in his years at the hospital, besides dealing with occasional medical disputes, he had never seen the chief physician covered in blood, running frantically through the hallways. "It's hard to say. This patient, no, this corpse, there's definitely something wrong with it," Director Boyd asserted. Could it be a case of suspended animation? A young nurse whispered from behind. Don't talk nonsense. We might have more patients tonight. Let's finish the procedure quickly after the assessment, the head nurse said sternly, heading back to the emergency room, under the cold, shadowless lamp. The middle-aged man's severed fingers continued to drip blood. The floor was covered with a large patch of dark blood, the exposed veins swelling ominously, looking ready to burst against the backdrop of the tiles. His low roars emerged from deep within his throat, mixed with anger, helplessness, pain, tearing, calling, and screaming. The smell of blood seemed to accelerate the corpse's strange transformation. The head nurse strode into the emergency room, skillfully picking up a notebook and flipping open the patient's eyelids to record the death data. The other nurses busied themselves, tidying up equipment, removing needles and catheters, loosening restraints, all proceeding in an orderly fashion. But no one knew that a horrific apocalypse was about to unfold. Nurse Spring bent down to unfasten the patient's restraints. In the brief moment the restraint loosened, the middle-aged man who had been lying down abruptly sat up and ferociously bit into Spring, ripping off a large chunk of flesh and blood in an instant. Help! Spring screamed in despair, unable to even finish crying for help before she was attacked again by this sinister man, who then voraciously began to devour her. The crowd scattered like birds and beasts, everyone running in different directions, with no one willing to intervene, each only concerned with their own survival. Meanwhile, Director Boyd, who had left the corridor, never returned. He had seemingly waited a long time for this moment, his eyes blood-red, his skin a dark purplish hue, and his mouth full of sharp teeth bared in a mad roar. He flipped over the steel frame resuscitation bed with one hand, shattering all the medical equipment that hindered his movement. He pounced on Spring, tearing at her neck brimming with blood, her delicate chest and abdomen. He shook his head as he gnawed open. The human body was no match for these terrifying, bloody fangs. Soon, Nurse Spring was reduced to a bloody, indistinguishable mess on the floor, never to see the morning sun again. The head nurse, over 40 years old, hid in her office, trembling and crying as she dialed the emergency number, not knowing that the police who would respond were headed towards the same fate, for the hospital, usually bustling, was now a scene of chaos, filled with people running and screaming in panic. Those caught in the middle didn't even know what had happened. They only knew to run with the others. The crowd, terrified as if they had seen a ghost, frantically hid from the stumbling, blood-covered pursuers. Many people, many could no longer be called human, the zombified ones, some in lab coats, some just admitted patients. Doctors no longer embodied compassion, and those with 4 drips no longer appeared sickly. They were strong, tirelessly dragging their eerie black-purple bodies, their grotesque mouths drooling and snapping. Anesthesiologist Brent just stepped out of the operating room when a zombified relative of a patient knocked him down and began to horrifically devour him. The zombies' cold, sticky fangs touched the warm skin and pulsating necks of the living, as enticing as the scent of a fine wine from 10 miles away. Their blood-red eyes gleamed as they buried their heads into Brent's body, blood splattering instantly. Brent's struggling legs kicked violently before gradually calming down, as swiftly as he administered anesthesia to his patients. With a clatter, the lights in the operating room went out, and the door opened. The nurse and the lead surgeon moved the stretcher away from the door, facing backwards. The zombified family member, feasting on the ground, slowly raised its head as if sensing the rich scent of fresh prey, their faces smeared with sticky blood and flesh. Still chewing on a piece in their stretched mouths, they stood up like cheetahs locking on their target, unsteadily moving towards the fresh prey. He was supposed to be a waiting family member, dressed neatly, carrying a laptop bag, with a brand new stainless steel lunchbox on his seat, eagerly awaiting his wife's surgery, only to be bitten in the throat by a zombie that appeared out of nowhere. Now, his light gray shirt was smeared with blood, a few strands of wild hair hanging from the pocket on his right chest. Zombies like him, devoid of thought, future, no longer showing love or concern for his beautiful wife. Only endless biting and bloodthirst remained. Across the hospital buildings, through the outpatient corridors, past the stark white doors of the clinics, marked with heavy streaks of blood, desperate people were either pushed to the ground or overrun and bitten, with warm, dripping blood and severed limbs hanging from the cold door handles, the ground a mess of wounds. Who would have thought that the son of the security guard would be the first to keenly detect the anomaly? Who could have expected that inside the medical college, where a statue of Norman Bethune stood symbolizing aid and relief, there would be a scene of widespread carnage, a hell on earth not unlike a human inferno. Zombies have truly taken over, the apocalypse is upon us.